It's a showtime. Hey, Mike, is Nick on his headset? Can you guys talk to each other for a minute? Nick is way too low. That's much more clean. What is he set at right now? Yeah, Nick should be at 11. Mike should be at 9.
Isn't it about time for somebody's favorite radio program?
Yeah.
97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
When I'm driving, I got a guy on the radio who talks to me. I can't see him, but he talks to me.
Now, live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Mike Gill.
We are live and ready for opening day of the Phillies baseball season, baby. We are ready to go. Maynards in Margate is our home today for the second year in a row. We are celebrating opening day with a watch party at Maynards in Margate. What's up, everybody? Happy opening day to one and all. The Sports Bash is live at Maynards in Margate here on 97.3 ESPN. I'm your host, Mike Gill. Josh Henning is back in the Ocean Casino Resort Studios. Nick Earnshaw's my on-site producer today. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. You got the big cheer, buddy.
I get the big applause over you. I'll take it.
I'll take it. Earnshaw is in the house for the show today. We got a busy show. Already see some Phillies red. I got one hat, got a T-shirt, got a hat and a T-shirt, got the Phillies red all over the place. 4 o'clock, first pitch, and the lineup is out today, man. The lineup is out. We'll give it to you in just a second. If you have our alerts, you got the lineup about an hour ago, and you saw the lineup today has 8 of the 9 starters from the 2024 opening day lineup in it, but it does have a twist to it. The lineup today for the Philadelphia Phillies, it is Turner leading off today. Trea Turner leads off for the Phillies today. Is that a surprise? Probably not a surprise. But Trea Turner, as many people have kind of indicated, Trea Turner will lead off today, followed by Bryce Harper hitting number 2. Alec Boehm will hit number 3 today. Kyle Schwarber hits 4. JT Realmuto is 5. Max Kepler, the newcomer, is hitting number 6. Nick Castellanos all the way down to the 7th spot in the lineup. Bryson Stott hits 8th, and Brandon Marsh is in the 9 hole. Zach Wheeler gets the call today. That is your 2025 opening day lineup. And, you know, the one change in the lineup this year is Kepler is in, and Rojas was the starting center fielder on opening day last year. He is out. So one change in the lineup in terms of personnel, but a little bit of a mix. They got Turner leading off with Harper hitting 2, Boehm hitting 3, and Schwarber hitting number 4. That is your Phillies lineup today for opening day, and we're going to talk a lot opening day. Frank Klose, our Phillies insider, will join us at 3. Dave Gallagher, 9-year Major League Baseball veteran, former Philadelphia Phillies outfielder. He will join me at 3:30, and we'll get, kind of opening day memories from him. You know, what is it like to get ready for an opening day? He played 9 years in the league with a bunch of different teams, including the 1995 Philadelphia Phillies. So 3 o'clock hour, really going to be dedicated to the season and the team and baseball and the Phillies. There is some other news today, by the way. Happy opening day, and then the Flyers came over the top with an elbow drop and said, the heck with opening day, we're going to fire John Tortarella. And the Flyers fired John Tortarella this morning. Now, there were some conflicting reports. You know, I was sitting there and I saw a post from one of the Flyer beat guys that said, I'm hearing John Tortarella is out. And I'm like, okay. So I start to do a little research. I text Kevin Durso, and Durso says, I'm doing a little digging. Well, then I started to see some people saying that Tortorella stepped down. Okay, he stepped down. I can understand he doesn't want to do this anymore. The team is not where he wants it to be, so he steps down. Well, then the Flyers come around with a little elbow drop off the top rope and say, no. He did not step down. He has been relieved of his duties as the head coach of the Philadelphia Flyers. So John Tortorella essentially fired today by the Philadelphia Flyers. There's a lot that we can discuss, and Durso is going to join us in 25 minutes from now. Obviously, Durso is around this team a lot more than all of us are, and he has been around this team for 10 years as the beat guy. So we'll get some insight from him. But I have done a couple of made some calls and did some digging with some Flyers stuff here. And from what I have been told and understand is that, quote, His ego took a toll on the players and the management. His comments the other night, the benching of Cam York, were the final straw. He was fine to teach the young guys and how to play D and keep them a little competitive to start the rebuild, but he was not their long-term guy. When they hired him, they thought they had a shot to make the playoffs because of Carter Hart. Well, Carter Hart's not here anymore.
No, he is not.
And now you have a team that is essentially kind of living on life support. I've said a lot here. Look, the Sixers did a process. And in that process, after 3 losing seasons, they won 52 games and were a legitimate championship contending level team. Like, maybe they weren't the best team in the league. Maybe they weren't, they were a number 1 seed one time, the Sixers were. Maybe they weren't your favorite, but there were a lot of NBA pundits that thought the Sixers were a legitimate title contender for about a 5-year stretch there. They lost for 3 years and became a title contender after 3 years of losing. The Flyers have not made the playoffs for 5 seasons in a row, and they have skedaddle to show for it. I mean, they have other than Michkov, they've got nothing. They literally have nothing to be excited about. Okay, you want to tell me Owen Tippett? These guys are secondary players. Okay, you need those players. But if you're bad for 5 years with no playoffs, nothing, you should at least say, hey, we've been bad, but we've been losing because we got this young guy and that young guy, and he's on the rise, and this guy. They've got nothing. So I get it. They got picks out the yin-yang. They have a new management, and I'm fine with all that. But, man, it is frustrating to say you got to this point with this coach, and you are no better off today than when you hired the coach. In fact, there's a good possibility that you could make the argument that this team is in worse shape now because of what Tortorella has done with this team. He coached this team like he thought they were going to be a playoff team. He's benching guys, and maybe benching guys and doing stuff to young guys is helpful to teach them, not to have bad habits. But if your team is as bad as they are right now, benching a guy like Cam York or Michkov and not letting them make the mistakes on the ice, that is you're not on the same page there. So the Flyers decide, I think a little bit, after hearing the comments that he made the other night, which was, I don't know what to do with this team. I don't know how to coach this team. I think it was the end result was, you don't know how to coach this team, we're going in a different direction, and the decision was made.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, Mike, looking at those comments the other night, I mean, that was it right there. I mean, it just showed that he was not on the same page as Jonesy and Briere in the front office. They are in a rebuild tanking mode. I mean, they're trading guys away at the deadline this year. They have all of these picks. He just wasn't the guy. They were not on the same page. He was hired to take this team to the postseason, and they are worse off, like you mentioned, now. With where they're at right this second, they're not in a great spot. They're in a tank spot rebuild again and again. But this is like the 10th rebuild that they've gone through.
Well, here's the problem. What was the message at the start of the season? Did the front office say, listen, let's take a shot at the playoffs? I don't
know.
But
we had them on the weekends. We had Briere and Jonesy on the weekends. They tempered expectations all before the season. And Torts, I thought, was on the same page. Apparently not.
Well, he had this team playing at a level where they were a fringe playoff team. Last year, they were a fringe playoff team up into the last week of the season. So this year, you're thinking, okay, last year we're right there. We're right a fringe playoff team. Then you add a player like Michkov, and you're thinking, okay, are we better than we were a year ago? Well, early in the season, they didn't get off to a great start. Then they started to play a little bit better, and they were kind of like right around that playoff mix. But this is bad. I mean, the way they're right now, I honestly, listen, I get it. They have a ton of picks. They got a ton of picks, and I'm all for stockpiling picks. But in hockey, it is hard to rely on adding draft picks to replenish the system at the NHL level that quickly.
Part of the problem, guys, is that, you were on the same page as Nick said at the beginning of the year, where Tortorella said, hey, this is a rebuild, this is a retool. And the whole purpose of Tortorella being here was he was supposed to be the litmus test. He was supposed to be hey, Tortorella has a history of developing guys. And that was why they traded away Farabee and Frost, because they said, hey, we tried to develop you with 2 different head coaches. It didn't work. You guys are gone.
Well, they realized that Farabee nor Frost could play, basically, is the thing. They were...
The problem with those guys, keep in mind, they were both first-round picks. So once the Flyers realized that Tyson Forrester and Bobby Brink, 2 guys who were not highly lauded picks, like Frost and Farabee were outpacing those guys, they say, we're done. We're cooked with these guys.
Yeah, no, I think they realized that those 2 players weren't as good as they had hoped, and they moved on from them. So kudos to them for recognizing that and then moving on. But here we are again where, listen, again, I have no problem if you are saying we're going to lose, we're not going to be very good this year, we're going to stockpile picks, and we're hoping. But this is, and I get it, Briere and Jones are new, this is not them. But I'm talking about as the organization. This is 5 years in a row they haven't been in the playoffs, and they have nothing to show for it. And now you're banking on this new regime on basically hitting on a stockpile of picks here to turn this thing around. So when does that get turned around? 3 years from now? It took the Sixers. Look, people complain that they lost for 3 years in a row. 3.
Are they 2 years from being 2 years away? I mean, that's essentially where you're at right now.
That's
with
what I'm
where
saying.
they're at.
So my point is the Sixers lost for 3 years in a row. And in that 3 years, they stockpiled players to get them to a 52-win team that many people believed had a shot to win a title. How many years now are you going to have to be bad to get enough talent to now make me feel this team can win 45, 50 games, be a high seed, and be a legitimate contender?
Well,
that, by the way, means you're going to have to hit on, like in basketball, you only have to hit on one guy. You need to get one guy to change your fortunes for the most part. That's not the case in hockey. We've seen a lot of bad teams get the number 1 pick in the draft, and they're still bad. They're still bad. You know, your Blackhawks, your Maple Leafs were not very good when they got Matthews right away. It took Buffalo when they got Jack Eichel. They lost for years. In fact, they still aren't winning, and they've moved on from Eichel already. So even getting the one player, let's say fine, they get a pick. They got Michkov. Great, he's awesome. Well, if you don't get multiple good players, you are going to be stuck in neutral, and that is where you look where this team is. You've been bad for 5 years, and you've got nothing to show for it.
Well, again, we want to remind people that it's been 2 different administrations, like you mentioned before, Mike. So it's not, it's like you can't blame Sam Hinkie for everything that happened after Sam Hinkie, so you can't blame Keith Jones and Danny Briere what happened before them. So that's one part of it. But the other part of it is, Mike, you guys can't be bad for too long because Michkov is here. So the clock has been accelerated. You guys can't sit there and be like, oh, well, we'll get around to being good. You have salary cap coming up this offseason finally. You have draft picks. Now is the time you absolutely have to start turning the corner or you might lose this young guy.
Well, listen, I will say this. I'm not blaming these guys. I'm not blaming them. I totally understand the situation that they're in, that they took over. But this is like where the Sixers had Henke, then they handed it off to Colangelo, then they handed it over to somebody else. The guys after Henke, they didn't drop the ball, and, they did drop the ball, but the team still was in a good enough position from what Henke gave them.
Right, Henke gave them more than Jonesy and Briere were given.
Right, they had Embiid, they had Ben Simmons, and you might not like Embiid anymore, or you might never have liked Ben Simmons. Those 2 players by themselves were good enough to make that team go from a lottery team to a 52-win team overnight.
Right.
If you remember, Embiid's first season, when he played for the first time ever, Ben Simmons was a rookie, but he was hurt, so he never played.
Yep.
They won 24 games that year. And then when Embiid and Simmons got paired up for the first time, they went from 24 wins to 52 wins. I don't know that that's going to happen for this Flyers team. Maybe 3 years from now they go from a 28-win team and then they become a 50-win team. But you're talking about today, they got not much to show for being bad for 5 straight years.
Well, again, let's not forget about in hockey, it's a little different than basketball because you said, you need 1 or 2 guys and it's completely flipped. but you don't need just one or two guys to be superstars. You need a lot of role players to build around these guys. So in hockey, you can spread that money out a little bit, and we've seen numerous teams that are 8, 7, 6 seeds make Stanley Cup runs, whereas in the NBA, if you're not top 4 seed, you're pretty much cooked usually.
Yeah, in hockey, you could be the 8 seed and make a run. You're right about that, but usually that team does it because they have a goaltender. And this team, I am 48 years old, so for the 45th year of my life, they have no goaltender.
And maybe that's where –
listen, Ersson's a nice player. He's not a number one.
He's a good backup.
He's a good backup on a good team. On a good team, he's an average guy. I mean, let's face facts. He is an average guy. So they got to find they've got to again find a goaltender.
And maybe
if you don't have that guy, you're cooked.
And maybe that's where you use the salary cap money with, right? Maybe you take that salary cap flush come money, and then you say, all right, we're going to go get a goaltender. You know, maybe you don't get Brizgalov and give him $2 gazillion to sit in the woods, but, you know, maybe you bring in a guy who actually could play.
609-403-0973 is the text board. 609-403-0973. That's the text board. And listen, I know it's opening day. We're going to do plenty of fills. I completely got thrown off because I had a whole bunch of Philly stuff to start the show today, and then this whole Flyers thing. Because as I was driving here, I sent a text out to one of my Flyers, sources, who got back to me as I was pulling up here today. And then some of the stuff that he sent me, I was like, you've got to be kidding me with some of this stuff here. So I was a little heated reading. I said, listen, because there's so many people there that are Flyers fans. This team has not had – you talk about relevancy. Okay, the Sixers, they were bad for 3 years. There's a bunch of old crotcheties out there that hated what they did. Oh, they threw seasons away. The Flyers are throwing seasons. They're not even smart enough to throw the season away. They're just they're just stinking because they're not very good, and they still have nothing to show for it. I mean, at least if you're going to be bad, just be wretchedly bad like the Sixers last night. Kudos to them. You couldn't lose a worse game. There's not a team. This is the worst loss that you can have, right? Last night, you lost a home game, right? You have a home game. So you're on your home floor, and you lost to a team that has 15 wins. It's the worst team in the league. You're at home, and you lost. That is the best possible loss you could ever come up with. To lose at home to the worst team in the league, the Sixers are figuring it out. We are doing what we are supposed to do. The Flyers should take some notes from what the Sixers are doing.
And that's funny because usually the Sixers can't tank correctly. Usually they can't.
No.
Now Grimes,
they're
been keeping
doing
them close.
a good job. If you haven't been paying attention to the Sixers, and I know many of you haven't, they have lost 21 of their last 24 games, including now 6 in a row. And if they lose the rest of the way out, they will lose 15 straight games. They won 3 games in a 20-game span. They've now lost at home to the Wizards. You can't ask for a worse loss than that. Now the biggest problem is going to be they have to go to Washington and try to find a way to lose down there next week. That's tricky to lose to that Washington team twice in the same couple of weeks spans. That's asking a lot, but somehow they lost that game last night. You're at home against that team. Holy mackerel. But they're doing their tank the best. They are trying to tank as good as they can. But the Flyers should have taken some notes the last 2 years. The problem with Tortorella was he made them too competitive.
Yep.
He made them too competitive, and they had no business being that competitive. So essentially, he got them stuck in the middle.
And that's where you don't want to be, right?
You
don't want to be in purgatory at all. And the fact, it just seemed like from that initial press conference, right, when they brought Danny Briere in to be the guy, to run this team, to build this team, it just seemed like Torch was never the right guy for this position. He wants to win. He's a guy who wants to win.
If I could ask you guys a question really quick about that, because part of the reason that Briere and Jones kept Tortorella here was because Tortorella had a history of developing young players.
Yeah,
so,
in Carolina, he did a decent job with that team.
And in Columbus. He did a good job in Columbus.
That's what I meant. I meant Columbus.
Yeah, Columbus.
Did I say Carolina?
You said Carolina, yeah.
When this, and in fact, this is exactly what he said. He rebuilt Columbus when they were pretty young, and he actually did a nice job before he wore out his welcome there. He gets a little bit of a bad reputation, but it was time to move on.
So, like, he has a history, and by the way, it's more than just Columbus. He did in Vancouver and New York as well with some young players. The problem you get into, Mike and Nick, and you guys can tell me how you feel about this, is did Tortorella's style of developing young players not match the rebuild stage of development the Flyers are in?
I think they thought they were further along based on what he got out of them last year.
Right, with them being close to a playoff.
And as the guy said to me, Carter Hart was good enough to make them close to a playoff team. When they lost Hart, they completely had no shot. And now you're in a situation where you are again looking for a goaltender.
And I ask you guys, are you okay with if you are the the Flyers come to you, Mike Gill, Nick Earnshaw, and say, hey, we're going to spend our salary cap, our coveted money we've been waiting for 3 years to use now on a goaltender?
Yeah, I honestly, I haven't sat here and done the research on what goaltenders are available and what you do in that situation. But you're the dog chasing the tail again, looking for a goaltender. And whether you have to spend money in free agency, that burned you before. You drafted many of these guys. None of them have worked out other than Hart. And let's be honest, Hart was good, but he wasn't as good as you were even hoping. He was good, but like not a number one good, which they were really hopeful for. And, yeah, now you're back to square one trying to find a goaltender. So guess what? You can get a couple nice players in the draft, and then you're stuck with the guy like Ersson being your goaltender, and you're still just an average team.
Yeah.
Right? That's what it comes down to. All right, Sports Bash Live today. We gave you the Phillies lineup. If you're watching on the YouTube and on the X platform, you see it scrolling at the bottom of the screen there. The Phillies lineup has been out for about an hour or so. If you have the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, we sent you the alert on your phone. And you saw that Trea Turner is hitting leadoff today. Trea Turner leading off. Bryce Harper hits 2. Alec Boehm will hit 3rd. Schwarber in the 4-hole today, followed by Real Muto, Kepler, Castellanos. What about that? No Castellanos behind Schwarber. They're going Real Muto, and Castellanos hitting in the 7th spot today. That one's interesting.
Kepler ahead of Castellanos today. That was fascinating to see. They're moving Castellanos down. Maybe it'll take the pressure off him a little bit. Maybe he gets off to a good start. Who knows?
609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. That is the text board on how you can chime in today on the show. We're live here till 6. We're going to have a huge crowd. We were here last year, and it was mobbed in here, so I would imagine you should get here a little early, try to get yourself a stool so you can get the seat that you want. TVs all over the place today. Great food here at Maynards in Margate, 9306 Amherst Avenue. We got tickets for the Phillies home opener on Monday, plus a parking pass, or you can pick the Metallica tickets for Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia. That concert is 2 nights. It is May 23rd and May 25th, and you can pick which tickets you want if you are the first one selected today. So stop out at Maynard's, open to everybody. Phillies watch party right here today on opening day for the Phils. But when we come back, Kevin Durso, our Flyers insider, was John Tortarella, was the writing on the wall here? Did he see this coming, or did this kind of come out of right field this morning? That is next on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN.
It's the Sports Bash with Mike Gill
Keeping the fans entertained and happy.
on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. The Sports Bash with Mike Gill
Never thought this radio stunt would catch on so big.
on 97.3 ESPN.
When you're in this type of situation and you're losing all the time and there's nothing at the end of the tunnel for you, there's certainly going to be some frustration. But this falls on me. I'm not really interested in learning how to coach this type of season where we're at right now, but I have to do a better job. So this falls on me, getting the team prepared to play the proper way until we get to the end.
Was that the beginning of the end for John Tortarella? That was the other night. Kevin Durso covers the Flyers for 97.3 ESPN.com. I texted him early morning when I saw the first tweet that said, I'm hearing John Tortarella is out. And he said, well, I'm trying to find out. Then some people suggested that he stepped down, and then the team put out a statement that said he has been relieved of his duties. So, Kevin Durso, was that comment the other night the beginning of the end? Did you see this coming? Is today a surprise that John Tortarella is no longer the Flyers coach?
So it's both for me. It's a bit of a surprise that it was today. I saw that as the beginning of the end by the end of the season. That's the way that I took it. Like, he says something like that, I don't see how he's your coach the following season for sure. Obviously, they accelerated that based on those comments. My interpretation from what John Tortarella said there was not as simple as I'm not interested in coaching the team. That's not what he said, and I don't believe that's what he meant. He said more or less, I don't know what else I can do with this group right now in this type of season. I'm not interested in learning how to do it. This isn't what we want the norm to be, but it is, and I have to do a better job with it. But that's not going to sit well with your management, with your, with the players in the room for that matter, because John Tortarella doesn't know any other way to do things. He is as blunt and honest as he can be especially after a game, and he came out and said it in that way. And I think that led to discussions that sped up this process even more than what it was. You couple that with Cam York being benched in that game, all of the benchings of Matvei Michkov over the course of the season. This goes back to last season when not long after they named Sean Couturier the captain, they sat him, and that didn't sit well in the locker room either. So that created a little bit of tension as well and kind of started this idea that maybe he wasn't the coach for the long haul. So I think this has been building for a little while, and this just brought it to a head faster.
Yeah, so let's start with the benchings. You mentioned York. Michkov. Was Jones and Briere not on board with the way that he has handled Michkov specifically? I mean, I think he's the one that a lot of people are like, come on, man, let him go out there and make his mistakes. And I think Tortorella's angle is, if I let him keep going out there and make mistakes, he's going to keep making them. So were they not on the same page with that, or were they like, hey, listen, no, we want him to be tough on him?
Again, a little bit of both, because I think, Keith Jones was just on WIP recently and said something about this, where it was like, I don't always agree with it in the moment, but you see the effect it has after the fact. Michkov gets benched for a couple of games. He comes back. He has a couple of great games. Okay, so it did what it was desired to do. But after a certain point, I think it gets tired on everybody in the room, honestly. Like, imagine trying to play as a player and going out there and basically feeling like I can't screw up. If I screw up, he might sit me down for the rest of the game, even if it's 4 minutes into the game. Now I'm playing tense. I'm playing tight. I can't play to my skill set. I'm starting what I kind of believe from this, and really to kind of fully sum this up the proper way, I've got to go back to the very beginning, because I saw a lot of people sitting here looking at the comments of I'm not interested in coaching this type of season and going, well, you signed up for this. It's a rebuild. You signed up for this. He didn't sign up for a rebuild. He was hired by Chuck Fletcher, who was in the aggressive retool stage, who insisted upon they're still in playoff races. They're going for it. And then when he got fired and Danny Briere took over officially, that's when Danny Briere went there and said rebuild. And they have now fully committed to it, even more this year than they did last year. And after the fact, now John Tortarella has to be completely on board. And he said a lot of the right things, in terms of you got to bear with it. You're going to feel pain. You got to eat it before you can be on the other side of it. You can say all those things, but you kind of can't keep pushing the same buttons with, I'm going to sit a guy down every time he makes a mistake, or pick my favorites and not sit this guy, but sit this guy, and for the same type of mistake, for the same lack of competitiveness. I also believe that there's an element where John Tortarella wants them to play one way, and it's not really a fit for the rest of the league, honestly. You've got a lot of teams that go out there and play 5-4 games and are offensively skilled And Michkov's a perfect example. He brings that element to the Flyers. He brings a skill set that they really don't have. Now you could be potentially, don't make this mistake. Don't do this. Don't cherry pick, make sure you back check. He gets sat because he didn't back check recently, right? You do all those things. Now you're playing a certain way that doesn't fit your own game. It takes away from your skill set to be the best player you can be because the coach is telling you, I need you to be this. I want to win 2-1 games when you have no goaltending, very little defense, and no skill. You have to try to maximize your skill. Like I look at the way they've played the last couple of games and go, Travis Konechny's not this bad. Owen Tippett's not this bad. They're being forced to play a certain way because the coach is sitting there telling you this is how we got to play to win. And I don't think that's the end all be all. I think that you've got to play to each individual's skill sets, balance those things out. It's what kind of made the Cates Brink Forrester line work a little bit, that they all had little elements that work for them, but they're not a top line. So you have to build that out collectively here, build that out across your whole team. And I think that's where they need a change. I think they just need a different mindset, a different message, a different style of play, honestly, because I give Michkov a ton of credit for having the amount of points that he has when the power play is as god-awful as it is. Like, he should have 60, 70 points this season if the power play was even halfway legitimate. He's got just over 50, and I think that's a credit to how skilled he is, but it holds you back if that's where his cutoff is in a year where a lot of people thought he was going to have a lot more.
Well, you're up there virtually every single home game. I don't know if you can figure this out, though, because of the language barrier, but Michkov's relationship with Tortorella, in your mind, was what?
It's certainly tense at times, especially as it kind of built. I think he took the benchings in the beginning totally well, and I think understood them. As it kind of starts to continue to build up, and I think Michkov, being the competitive person that he is, too, the frustration gets to him too. You're losing a lot of games. You don't want to be doing that. You come over here, you think you're going to have it made in the NHL. You can play to your skill set. I'm here to help the team win. And potentially you're being held back a little bit from where you think your skill set is best. Now, he's understanding that he's got to learn certain aspects of it. And I'm sure that other players on the team are guiding him along in that direction as well. You don't play next to Sean Couturier and not have a little bit of two-way in your game. But you don't want to hold him back completely either and take away his creativity and all of that. Like, he should be, especially with some of these other guys they have that definitely have more ability than what they've shown in the last 20 games, let's say. You should be better on the power play. And it's just vanilla. It's boring. They don't do anything creative. And you have a guy who should be giving you a creative element. They don't even play him on a side where he's able to unleash, say, a one-timer or something. They have him on the offside for that. It makes no sense to do it that way. You kind of hinder yourself in that respect. So that's where I think it starts to grow tired, is that, it's one thing to lose competitive games, to say you're not there. I think that's what Danny Briere and Keith Jones have sold the entire year, is we're not going to be there against the best of the best, but we want to be competitive. You just lost 7-4 to the Chicago Blackhawks and then 7-2 to the Toronto Maple Leafs, and that's about as good as losing 6-2 to Columbus and 9-3 to Montreal down the stretch last year when you're in a playoff race and they're out of it. It doesn't equate to competitive. It's not watchable, and it really becomes beyond frustrating.
We're talking with Kevin Durso, 97.3 ESPN.com Flyers insider. The Flyers have fired John Tortarella. So you got 8 games, something like that left. So, obviously they just decide, okay, let's cut our ties and move on. But 2 weeks ago, did it enter your mind that John Tortarella was not going to coach the Flyers next season?
It was a thought, for sure. And it didn't completely – the reason it was a thought to me was because as the losses started to pile up, I just don't know how you can go down the stretch of a season and say there was quite legitimately, as they started to play kind of this gauntlet of teams, they're losing to Winnipeg, Dallas, Washington. You're going to play all those teams, and clearly you're not in the same stratosphere as those teams. You do all of that type of stuff, and I just started to wonder, what if they win 4 out of the final 21, and this is your head coach who's all about winning and being competitive? I don't know how you move forward with that guy. It's one thing if the coach has fully accepted this is what we are, and we sold at the deadline, and they moved 4 different players off of the roster, so now you're filling it in. Your entire fourth line at this point, it belongs in the minor leagues. Let's be real. So losses are understandable, but you're still talking about getting the most out of this and doing things the proper way and things like that, and it's like, there is no kind of coming back from that. You can't sit there and say you're not interested in coaching, learning how to coach this type of season and come back from that.
Listen, I kind of like you say that and you hear him and you're like, really? And then, but you're also like, this is the odd part about this is the fan base wants you to lose now, right? Because the draft choice. We've all now been programmed that, well, if you're not going to make the playoffs or you're not a championship team, I'd rather have you lose, get the better draft choice. That's what has infiltrated sports for good or bad. But on the flip side of that, it's almost like, if you're going to lose, it can't be so embarrassing. So the fine line of saying, you want us to lose, we're losing, but now you're telling me I'm losing too bad. Like, he was in a tough spot.
Sure, he definitely was, and that's why I don't think he kind of knew. Like, the way I look at the way that Tuesday went, and I hear those comments.
He's like, you want me to lose? Do you want me to lose 4-3? I mean, what is that better?
Right, right. And the way I hear that, it was very similar. Like, the reason that's why I saw the writing starting to really be on the wall after Tuesday was because, to me, I heard a coach that has no more answers. I don't know what else you want me to do with this. I don't know where else to go with this. I'm not interested in learning how to go with this. So what would you like me to do, kind of? And I felt the same way when Elaine Vigneault got fired. That there was a point where it hits a certain point where you just sense that the coach is at wit's end. I have no other answers for you. And like, you played the clip at the start of all this. He sounds defeated in it. He sounds like,
sure.
I got to do a better job, but I got to do a better job, but we're
like,
riding it out. There's no light at the end of the tunnel.
I have no interest coaching a team where the expectation is they want us to lose.
Right.
And at the same time, I can't help them get better because if I do, we might win. Like, you're in the funny part is I'm reading this headline from Keith Pompey about the Sixers. It says, Sixers pick up much-needed loss. I mean, have you ever in your life think you would ever read a headline, a much-needed loss is where we are in sports? It is a sad. But I bring that up because the Flyers have had a lot of much-needed losses over the last 5 years. The problem is they haven't lost enough. So here we are, 5 years, no playoffs. I know we'll talk again at the end of the season. But what do they really have to show for it other than the hope of all these draft choices and some of them working out?
Well, sure. And to your point, like, and I haven't been tweeting too much in games because I'm in the middle of my own life. For some reason, life-changing events for me turn out to be big moments for the franchise as well. Because, I'm sitting there holding my daughter this morning and trying to figure out, what's going on at the same time. So multitasking. But I tweeted out after the game against Toronto, big night for those focused on draft lottery odds because the Flyers lost, Buffalo won, Nashville won, and here's the margins. And it's starting to look like those two teams could pass them and give the Flyers even more of a shot at a top pick. So, of course, we think that way. But in terms of, now that sense of direction, part of the problem with the last 5 years thing is Chuck Fletcher never went in this direction. And that was a big problem. Like, when you were in a situation where you really needed to start to stockpile again, you should have been rebuilding. I mean, he was making trades, giving up your first round picks. So he's screwing that whole thing up in that sense. And it took them too long. Honestly, you kind of owe John Tortarella for getting him out the door because Tortorella kind of saw through his BS to a degree with being in a playoff race and not having and feeling like they were closer than they were. You get rid of Chuck Fletcher, Danny Briere comes in and says the word that everybody doesn't want to say in the organization, starts them down that path. I think even gave John Tortarella a courtesy last year by not doing more at the deadline selling-wise than he could have because they were in the race. They still didn't make it. And this year, Briere kind of, for better or worse, was like, I'm not screwing around. If we're not seeing progress with guys, they're moving. That's the way it is. Or if it's a logical person to move. So they moved Farabee and Frost because the progress wasn't there. And those guys were going to, sooner or later, they were going to have to get paid again in more substantial numbers. And then you trade Scott Lawton. I'm not even going to throw the Eric Johnson one in there. You were doing him a favor. But you move Scott Lawton now. They didn't even have to move Scott Lawton this year. He still had one more year left on the contract. But you do it anyway because you know it's the best thing to do for the team in a rebuild. And you did leave John Tortarella with bare bones minimum of what's left. And so, but at the same time, you can't be the coach of the team, say, I'm not interested in coaching through this type of season, and all year long say, we've got to eat it, and this is where we are, and we need to get the talent and do it a certain way. It's almost like he's looking at the last 12 games. They've lost 11 of 12 and saying, Well, you didn't say it was going to go like this after we traded all these guys to a degree. What happened to my competitive team that got through 60?
Right.
And that's why I had a hard time seeing him come back next year, is because you really can't have a season again where for 60 games you're hanging around. And part of the problem is, and I forget where it came up, or I think it was brought up. I think maybe I was listening to you yesterday talk about the NBA playoffs and the way they try to structure that whole thing, and how there's, kind of, it's the incentive to either lose out and get the top pick, or you end up in this play-in situation that they have. And I see stuff about the NHL talking about expansion and things like that, and I hate the idea, because the last thing I need to see is two or four more teams in this league that's already too mediocre to begin with, where you have teams like the Flyers with their goaltending, right? The Flyers aren't the only team with goaltending like this. You got a preseason special in March when they played the Blackhawks, and no goalie was good, no defense was good. It looked like preseason, shinny, as they call it, in Canada and things like that, where it's just free for all. And I don't want to see more of that. You need to eventually turn the corner on the constant mediocrity and do something with it. That's where the picks come in. I don't think that they're just going to use all the picks and start drafting guys and say, let's see where we are 3 years from now. They know they've got to accelerate it in some capacity. That's what they're going to try to use some of these picks for. The goaltending situation is obviously one of the major ones. They need a goalie. They need at least another goalie. I think I've called Sam Ersson a capable starter, which means I think he fits in a tandem well. You can put him with somebody else. He can start a handful of, 30, 35 games.
If he's the second guy in the tandem.
Well, that's what I mean. If you start him 30, 35 times a year, he wins 15 to 20 of them, you're feeling okay about that. Yeah. That gets you through half of the year, and then you need the other guy who wins the other 20 to 25 that gets you approaching 45 to 50 wins. That's what you need. And I feel like they've got a guy like that in their system, but he's years away at this point. So right now, what's going to happen probably is, you've got one guy who I don't know what the hell's going on with him in terms of, with Kolosov, where he's up and he's down and he's not playing at the NHL level. I don't know that he's going to be back next year. And then Ivan Fedotov, who I think has been a good sport through all of this for being backup, third string, all over the place. I just don't think he's good enough either, and I wonder if he's back. So you're going to probably have Harrison, but you're going to have to, at least to even ice a team next year, probably sign a guy on a low-risk deal, somebody who's a veteran who can kind of go into that tandem with them and see what you can do from there. But you're back to square one with that, and you still need, pretty much, aside from Michkov being a skilled winger, you need a top center and you need a top defenseman, and that's certainly where this draft starts. But you also need to look in other ways to acquire that at some point, and they're going to certainly do that. And I wonder if they, going into that, especially with free agents potentially, John Tortarella is not exactly the coach that everybody wants to play for. And I wonder if that comes into play as well, that he's going to hold you back.
That will obviously be the next target we'll be talking to Kevin about, is who will be the next coach of this team. Are they going to go, they have kind of gone away from the former Flyer the last couple of hires here. So do they go back? Tockett's name always comes up, something like that. So we'll see. We'll keep our eye on that. Kevin _Durso on the X platform. And, of course, the Flyers, with 9 games left, they fired John Tortarella today. All right, buddy. Well, get back to daddy duties.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
All right, there's Kevin Durso, 97.3 ESPN.com, our Flyers insider. They fired John Tortarella today. By the way, Brad Shaw is the interim head coach. He will assume the duties for the rest of the season. We are live at Maynards in Margate, everybody. We are getting ready for Phillies opening day. When we come back, we're going to get the lineup out for you. We'll get some thoughts on that. Plus, I have all of my Phillies 2025 thoughts on the season. Crystal balls, predictions, MVP, Cy Young, bounce back, how this season's going to go, how many wins. You won't even have to watch any games. I'm going to map it all out for you.
I can't wait to hear that, because I got a few for you during the Nuggets segment later on today, too.
Nuggets at 4:30 today. By the way, former Philly, 9-year Major League Baseball veteran Dave Gallagher joins me at 3:30 today. We'll get his thoughts on, does he like the way the Phillies lineup is being put out there today? They've got Trea Turner leading off. We'll get the whole lineup out to you. Stick around. That's coming up next. We're live at Maynards at Margate, 9306 Amherst Avenue. Open to the public for our Phillies opening day watch party. I would get here as early as possible. Last year, there was not a stole to be had by first pitch, so stop on out and get here as fast as you can.
It's the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
Do I have everybody's attention now?
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
With GMF financing, qualified buyers excludes Traverse and Corvette excludes prior sales.
It's back! It's Bennett Chevy's most popular event, March Markdowns for the entire month of March. So get to Bennett right now for savings up to 20%. That's right, you get up to 20% off. That's because Bennett sells new Chevys at the true GM supplier employee price, plus gives you all the rebates. So get to Bennett Chevy now and save even more with available 0% financing. Looking for used? Bennett Chevy is South Jersey's largest certified dealer with great savings on every single one. And during March Markdowns, you'll get a minimum 10 grand for the worst clunker towards any pre-owned in stock. That's at least $10,000. Imagine how much you'll get for a good trade. And our non-commissioned sales team is the best. They're paid on your satisfaction, not your budget and how much you spend. So everybody gets our famous no pressure, friendly, and helpful service. Together, let's drive during March Markdowns at Bennett Chevy, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
Hey, Joy. Oh, you are glowing.
Oh, hey, more like Mira joyed that Miralax helped me go. I was so backed up. Tried mega coffees, prune juice, everything. Then Miralax. And hello, gentle relief without the harsh side effects.
Ooh, how does it work?
It works naturally with the water in your body for constipation relief. Find Miralax today at your local retailer.
Use as directed for occasional constipation.
Attention! If you owe money to the IRS, this is an urgent message. The IRS is cracking down by sending out collection letters, garnishing paychecks, seizing bank accounts, and putting liens on homes and businesses. They call it enforced compliance, and you better watch out because penalties and interest on unpaid taxes compound daily, making it even harder to get out of debt. Don't let tax debt destroy your life. You need to call Optima Tax Relief, America's #1 tax resolution firm. They're experts in taxpayer assistance programs that can save you thousands if you qualify. A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, Optima's resolved over $1 billion of tax debt for their clients. Let them fight on your behalf, helping to put your tax problems to rest. Call the tax professionals at Optima now for a free consultation.
Call 800-367-6289. 800-367-6289. 800-367-6289.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Hey, if you have ugly yellow toe fungus, you gotta hear about the secret 2-minute trick that I found for my husband. It works from both the inside and the outside. Thousands of people are using it to get rid of their toe fungus. You can check it out at crystalflesh.com. Jake started off with a small spot on his big toe and then it spread and got really bad. His toes were nasty. It was so embarrassing. He was afraid to take his socks off. He hid his yellow and crumbly toes from everyone. He tried everything to get rid of it. Nothing helped. And then we found crystalflesh.com. It was the only thing that worked. In just a few weeks, his toes looked amazing. He's now walking around barefoot again. You guys need to try this. I'm telling you, this stuff is different. It's not sold in stores, but go check it out at crystalflesh.com. They'll even let you try it risk-free so you have nothing to lose. But whatever you do, don't let it get worse. You don't have to live with this anymore. Go check it out now. Just click over to crystalflesh.com.
Progressive knows there are some surprisingly expensive things in life, like fences. A house with a big yard and a white picket fence was always the dream. But then you saw the price to install a fence and you're wondering if the color is driving the price up. Nobody ever dreams of a beige or a gray picket fence, right? So maybe those fences are cheaper. But no, they're not. Then you remember that switching your home and auto to Progressive could save you
You're listening to The Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
All right, well, about 1 hour away from first pitch there, Earnshaw. 1 hour away from first pitch. Here's the Phillies lineup. We'll give it out to you one more time. Turner, Harper, Bohm, Schwarber, Real Muto, Kepler, Castellanos, Stott, Marsh, and then Wheeler's on the mound today. They're going with Turner.
I know they're going with Turner, but when it flips over to a right-handed pitcher, you're probably going to go Schwarber.
So Schwarber probably will hit leadoff on Saturday.
Yeah, Saturday's going to be the day for Schwarber. That's the real opening day, to be honest.
We'll talk to Dave Gallagher, former Philly, 9-year Major League Baseball veteran, at 3:30 today. Does he like the idea of a platoon leadoff guy? He played in the majors. If I said, Dave, you're hitting leadoff today, but you're going to hit number 4 on Friday, would he be okay with that? We'll talk to him coming up in a half an hour here on the Sports Pass, live from Maynards in Margate on 97.3 ESPN.
feel like almost too much is made about lineup order?
No doubt.
What is the
I talk about it every day.
Oh, I thought I was waiting for the music. I'm sorry. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. I don't know what the hell happened right there. I heard some wild comments before. Josh says it's all my fault, and I'll agree with him. All right, I was going to blame you anyway, but you did it yourself. No. I don't know what was the bite. I couldn't really make out what he said. Was that Rob Thompson? Was that the bite you were just telling me
Thompson,
about?
yeah.
So
we're on remote today at Maynards, so it's a little tough to hear. I couldn't really hear what he said.
So
but
Rob
there was something that really threw me off before that. I don't know what the heck was that guy saying.
Listen, I put the thing in the wrong spot because I was rushing to try to get it on because I'm trying to do 20 things over here. You know how it is back here with this slow computer. But basically, Thompson was asked by the guys in the dugout, is there too much made out of this lineup stuff? And he says, yeah, probably. I talk about it every day.
Okay, so what he says, I think, is more is there too much made of the lineup? Sure.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
not what Dombrowski said, though, that it's irrelevant. I don't agree with Dombrowski's comments.
I kind of do.
So you're going to hit Rojas one?
No. I think the conversation of the lineup is a little irrelevant.
Well, that's not what Dombrowski said. He said you'd be amazed at how irrelevant lineup configuration is.
Well, I think he meant in the sense of moving Schwarber and Turner back and forth. I think that's where he was really referring to.
Maybe, but I do think that, especially, listen, the Phillies have multiple capable guys. The question, I don't think, is whether Turner is better than Schwarber or Schwarber is better than Turner. I think the question is, do they just need to kind of shake something up because they've gone with Schwarber for the last 3 years and they haven't been good enough? So is it time to give something else a look? Because, as I just said, and Frank Klose is going to join us in just a second here, as I just said, when the lineup was announced today, seven of the eight players in the lineup today. Actually, all 9 if you want to count the pitcher. Actually, no.
DH.
Everybody in this lineup was in the lineup last year on opening day except for Kepler.
Yep.
Kepler was not here. Last year, Marsh was in left and Rojas played center on opening day. The only spot in the lineup that is different from last year in terms of personnel is Kepler. So you have the same lineup that you failed with last year and the same lineup essentially that you failed with the year before and the same lineup that you failed with the year before that. It doesn't mean that they're not good enough, but you just keep coming up short. So does it behoove you to do what they did today? And we'll bring in Frank Klose, 973ESPN.com, and ask him. I mean, number one, I don't know if you're surprised at all, but they are hitting Trea Turner in the leadoff spot. Rob Thompson asked a little while ago, is too much made of it? I think there is a little bit too much made of it, but it's not what Dave Dombrowski said the other day, that it's completely irrelevant. I think everybody's asking is because the lineup keeps coming up short in the playoffs, right, Frank? Is that how you read it? You don't have to answer the way I'm answering. You might see it differently.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think it was time to make some changes. You know, I thought at the end of last year, the Phillies kind of needed a more reliable left-handed bat that could maybe play left field. Now, in an ideal world, that would be Soto, who ends up in New York. But, you know, certainly Max Kepler kind of fits that bill, but they also kind of had to mix things up a little bit. You know, when you're signing a Max Kepler who is not a power guy, you really do what your power, which is Kyle Schwarber, is the big power bat they have, further down in the lineup so that some of those solo home runs become 3-run home runs and some doubles become multiple RBI hits. And by putting Turner first and having your best hitter Harper second, you set them up for that. And, you know, I think I personally am a fan of this particular lineup they have today that they're rolling out. I think it gives it a much better look and a much better balance. But they kind of said they might change it up depending if they're facing a lefty or righty. That was kind of what I got at the end of spring training when they started tinkering with it a little bit back and forth. And
that's
we'll
it
see
sounds
what
like
happens
they're going to try
tomorrow.
anyway. Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Now, I don't know how comfortable as a player you are. One day you're hitting leadoff, the second day you're hitting fourth. I mean, they have a day off tomorrow, but, you know, tomorrow or Saturday, maybe Schwarber hits leadoff. I don't know that that's something that – both players are comfortable with, or are they both comfortable with, or they might say they're comfortable with it, but are they really comfortable with it? You're putting a lot of variables into this.
And quite honestly, there's so many lefties in this lineup anyway. If you're really committed to Brandon Marsh playing every single day in center field, that's a lot of lefties. Now, they'll face Jake Irvin in Game 2, who's a right-handed pitcher, so they'll all be lined up against him anyway. I personally would not keep switching back and forth all the time. I mean, if these are the best 9 that you're going to put out there in the lineup, just let them roll. Maybe philosophically you have to move some things around if people don't work out. I mean, if let's face it too, Bryson Stott kind of had a down year last year. So if we've heard stories about his elbow bothering him, et cetera, but they needed that production later in the lineup last year than they didn't get. So Kepler kind of is in that spot in the lineup now to maybe give them some of that production they thought Stott would last year. But I would just set it and forget it.
Yeah, so let me get your thoughts on what Turner hitting leadoff, Harper hitting 2, Bohm hitting 3, and Schwarber hitting 4. How do you see that being different than what we've seen in the past, which has been Schwarber, Turner, Harper, Bohm?
Turner can get on base, and then when he gets on base, he can use his speed. Now, that's not something he's used a lot in his Phillies career thanks to the injuries he's had. So if he is indeed his old self, and I think he's even spoken to that in spring training about how if he's in that position, then he's going to use his speed more, or he's ready to use his speed more. It makes sense to have him at the top, right? If he gets on with a single, if he gets on with a walk, he can steal second base. Then he's in scoring position for Bryce Harper. And then you know what? If Bryce Harper drives him in, you've got a contact bat behind him and Alec Bohm. And the next thing you know, Kyle Schwarber can hit a home run and clear the bases. So I think that is the way you would want the lineup to function. Now, if you put Schwarber first, yeah, he hit some leadoff solo home runs and gave the Phillies a quick lead, which was helpful at times because I did think, hey, it did set the tone. Some playoff games the last few years, that leadoff home run really did set a tone for the entire game. But if he walks, he has no speedster on the bases. No offense to Kyle Schwarber, right? And then if you have someone who's speedy behind him, you can't really maximize Turner's speed if Turner's second, because he's can only go as far as Schwarber ahead of him. So I do like the function of this lineup the way that they have it today.
Are you surprised, or would you go with Schwarber behind Harper? I know that's 2 lefties back-to-back, but both of them handle left-handed pitching. Would you rather see Schwarber protecting Harper or Bohm protecting Harper?
I like Bohm batting third. I do. I think when you're the best player in the team, kind of the modern way of doing it is to put that batter second. That batter shouldn't worry so much about protection, unlike some of the other players in the lineup that will need that protection in the lineup. So I don't think Bryce Harper is the type of player that needs quote-unquote protection. I think that if you're the opposing pitcher, you're probably nervous to face Bryce Harper, and if you really can't pitch around him too when you know that you have contact hitter and Alec Bohm behind him and Schwarber beyond that. So if I'm the opposition and Harper's batting second and the Phillies have, if you can go down the line there further, Real Muto's no slouch, and then if Kepler's playing well, there's really no easy out there. So it's not like these are positions in the lineup that need that protection, so to speak. So I think this is
You mentioned there's no outs. Obviously they get themselves out a lot in the playoffs. They strike out. They swing at pitches out of the zone. That's been their problem. But one of the thoughts in the lineup that I was a little surprised by is Castellanos 7, Real Muto 5. So they're kind of still, I don't know, is that suggesting to you that they, will think that Real Muto is more trustworthy, a better option? Obviously they think he's a better option. He's hitting higher. But I was a little surprised. Castellanos had a pretty solid, and listen, I was tough on Castellanos, but I thought he was at least solid the whole second half of the year after a terrible start. But why do you think Real Muto 5 and Castellanos 7?
Maybe for the reason you just said, he strikes out less. I think he's the more contact bat. But let's face it, there's going to be a lot of games this year that Real Muto does not play. They are going to try to keep him off his knees behind and from behind the plate more often, and I'm sure Castellanos will slip into that spot on the days that Real Muto doesn't play. But I think it's about contact and the fact that he's less likely of the two to strike out. So I think that's why they want Real Muto there. And they kind of think that if he is off his knees a little bit more, he'll be in better shape to provide some offense. Because it's probably not a coincidence that he had a down year offensively last year too, with the injury.
Yeah, that was one. Tell people in your mind what to expect from Max Kepler, because obviously he's hitting ahead of Stott. Stott has been the 5-hole hitter on this team so you're going from Stott hitting 5, and now he's down in the 8th spot in the lineup. So you would say, wow, the guy who used to hit 5 is now all the way down at 8. So why Kepler in the 6th spot and Stott in the 8th spot?
Well, Kepler had a much better spring, I think it's fair to say. And to be honest, Stott, when he had the opportunity last year, he didn't come through. Again, elbow, no elbow. Hard to make excuses of the little injuries that players are going to have, because everybody's going to have one over the course of the year, something, right? So if it wasn't bad enough to play that he couldn't play through it, then it's kind of hard to make that as an excuse. But yeah, I think Kepler's there because of his high contact. Traditionally in his career, he's had some really good years OPS wise, which maybe is a little bit more reliable at this point than Stott. Now, certainly Stott can hit his way further up. I think we need to see more from Bryson Stott, and I think it's a really important year for Bryson Stott. I think last year they were counting on him to be in that role, and because he didn't come through, that's why they had to go out and get a bat like Kepler. So this is a big year for Bryson Stott. He can either move himself up the order, or he can honestly play himself off the team. I mean, we know that there's a top prospect that plays the infield lurking in Aiden Miller. So this is going to be an important year to show that he belongs and he could do more. And let's face it, Bryson Stott did have a good spring too. He put an 859 OPS together this spring, which is pretty darn good. So I think he's got a shot to have a good year again. But he needs to have that consistency. I think of Bryson Stott like I thought of Alec Boehm last year, going into last year. He's too much of a contact hitter to completely fall off the face of the earth. And I can see him getting his feet under him like Boehm did last year.
All right, a couple more with Frank here. The game is 3-2 in the 9th. Who's on the mound to close the game out?
If they're going to face a tough lefty, Alvarado. If they're going to face a tough righty, Jordan Romano. I
so
think
you think Alvarado is in line to close games out against left-handed batters?
I think he is. It's really hard to argue with how he looked this spring.
He did have a good spring.
And he did have a good 22 and good 23. So that was his role then. Last year, they had to get away from it because of the way that he was playing. And look, let's be honest, relievers are up and down year to year. I think we know that to be the there's very few, like when you think of the lockdown closers, the Billy Wagners of the world, the Kenley Jansens, et cetera, we could probably name a bunch of them over the course of history. But
where is Kenley Jansen this year? I saw he's with somebody.
He is. I forget who. Is it the Angels?
Yes, the Angels. I was going to say, it's not a very good team. It's not a good team. Yeah.
But, in his heyday, there was nobody that was going to put him up against anybody else. So, I think that Rob Thompson's going to continue his matchup plan, and I think that Romano and Alvarado showed in spring training they have their old selves back, at least for what we saw so far, that they'll get that opportunity. I mean, there's really no other obvious person, I think, that you would give it to. I mean, Kirk Ring's got a chance to move deeper into games, but they weren't ready to give it to him yet. So I'll keep my eye on those two for the tough outs at the end of the game. And it could be like we saw a few years ago when Dominguez was dominant and Alvarado were dominant at the same time. They just went into innings 8 and 9 and said, all right, here are the matchups. Let's go put the right guy in the right place for each of the 2 innings, and let's win this game. And the Phillies did all the way to the World Series. So I think that's going to be the attack plan.
Last time the Phillies had a closer with 30 or more saves, Genmar Gomez. Remember him in
from the glory days?
2016. Genmar Gomez was the last one. All right, Frank Klose all season long with us with our Phillies opening day today party here at Maynards and Margate. I know you are going out to head out to check out the Phillies, so I'll let you get out of here a little early, Frank. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, there's Frank Klose, our 97.3 ESPN.com Phillies Insider. Year number 10 for Frank as part of the Sports Bash. All right, Earnshaw, you just heard what Frank had to say about the lineup. Now, we just did hear from Rob Thompson via John Clark saying that they are going to use Turner against lefties and Schwarber against right-handers. They're going to try that out and see how it works out to start the season, at least, it looks like. So, listen, I don't love it, but I was on team give Turner the shot and change something up a little bit because you already know what you are with this team. You can win 95, and that doesn't to say you can win 95 games with Schwarber hitting leadoff, and you can win 95 games with Turner hitting leadoff. But is it just the makeup of the way that you have to navigate your way through that changes things? That's what I was saying. I think it's time to see if you change that up a little bit and make the teams now adjust their game plan when they face the Phillies.
Yeah, I think for Rob Thompson, he has to try something a little bit different, right? They didn't go out. They didn't get a big-time name during free agency. The only guy that's different in the lineup, like you mentioned earlier in the show, is Max Kepler. He's the only opening day starter that is different from last season. So they're trying to do something a little bit different. I'm more on the Dombrowski side. You put Schwarber there, you put Turner there. I think they're still going to win 90-plus games anyway. But early on in the season, to try it out and see if the offense really can get going with either one of those guys, and then maybe you stick with it after June, July, August, and September, then you just stick with one guy. But you're kind of having a little bit of a battle here with Schwarber and Turner battling for that first spot to lead off. And I guess whoever has the better numbers in the first couple months, maybe you stick with it for the rest of the year.
Well, maybe not. Or maybe you just keep flipping them. I mean,
you could.
The last time I remember this, and it's kind of odd, but I do remember the Arizona Diamondbacks hit Corbin Carroll lead off against righties, and they hit Kendall Marte against lefties in the series against you. So one night you got Wheeler pitching and Carroll's leading off, and the next night you got Suarez pitching and they had Marte leading off. So they did do it and made it to a World Series.
Remember, though, Kyle Schwarber, he said a few years back when they tried to do this, they tried to take him out of that leadoff spot. He likes being in one spot. He liked being the leadoff hitter. Now his tune's kind of changed a little bit. I'm curious to see how the tone of each of the players changes.
Well, I wonder if his
season.
tune has changed because they've asked him, or has his tune changed because he's legitimately happy with it?
They tried it before. You know what I mean? So I'm very curious to see how long they're going to go back and forth with it.
All right, Dave Gallagher's going to join us in about 12 minutes from now. Before we get to him, here are a few of my Phillies crystal ball thoughts and predictions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, number 1, Andrew Painter will be a major factor this season. I believe he will enter the rotation sometime after the All-Star break, and my prediction is when he does, it will be very difficult for Rob Thompson to remove him.
Oh, I think you're right there. And he's going to get an opportunity. They're going to bring him up this year. I mean, he is a guy that's
They are not only going to bring him up.
He's going to be a star.
That when he's in that rotation, they are not going to know what to do with him, whether they pitch him in behind Wheeler. I think he will be a absolute difference maker for this team this season. If anybody has seen this kid, he is like 6'7", and he is
a monster on the mound,
a massive human being, and he's got command. He commands his pitches. And listen, right now, if he wasn't coming off Tommy John surgery, he would probably be pitching these games instead of Walker.
Yes, absolutely.
In this spot. But I think much like Luzardo, where Luzardo is so good that they had to move him up to the 2 spot in the rotation just because he's that good, I think Painter is going to pass over Nola and pass over possibly. And I don't know. I actually think Christopher Sanchez is going to have a lights-out season.
I think Christopher Sanchez, his velo's up. I think Sanchez is going to be massive this year for the Phillies.
I think I'm going to ban the word velo from my show.
You don't want to use the word velo?
No.
His velo's been up, though. It has been. That's a positive thing for Sanchez.
I know. It stems. Somebody said something to me the other day about, man, this kid came in the other day. He was throwing hard. And I said, did he throw any strikes? Well, no. He was all over the place. I said, I don't care. The famous saying of I don't care how hard you throw a ball for, we are putting velo on too much of a pedestal.
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree. But it has been up. That's a positive sign.
But I will say for Sanchez, he had a problem with lack of command.
Yes.
He has found out how to command.
Exactly.
And that has made him better. All right, number 2. The Phillies lineup has been very streaky. My guess is that Dave Dombrowski will give this group to the trade deadline. And if there is a glaring issue, he will shake it up. He was quiet this offseason. But my guess is that July 31st will be the most exciting July 31st in the Dombrowski era.
Oh, I tend to agree with you on that. Just because they didn't do a whole lot during the offseason.
Yeah.
Because if they're not going to go out, they're going to just sign a Max Kepler. They got a Luzardo. That was their big move of the offseason.
Well, remember, Dombrowski's been known to be the big guy that pulls the trigger. He's made a lot of trades in all his Detroit and Boston and in Montreal and Florida. And he hasn't done that here.
Now, I'll pose this to you. If they feel like they can go for it this year, they have to make a move. Do they trade one of those top prospects, a Crawford, a Miller? It doesn't seem like they want to move Miller at all. But if it comes to it, do you move on from some of those prospects to go for it this season?
More on that later.
Oh, there's
More
more.
on that later.
There's more, Mike Gill.
Number 3, Jordan Romano, and Orion Kirkering will both be All-Stars.
Wow. See, you've always been high on Kirk.
I've always been a big fan of Romano in Toronto. Remember, he was a 2-time All-Star, and I saw him pitch down in Clearwater. I think it was actually in Dunedin he pitched the day I was down there. He was outstanding that day. I loved him in Toronto. Plenty of life with his fastball. Looks like he's back a little bit. Last year, the Phillies had Jeff Hoffman and Matt Strom represent them at the All-Star game. I think Romano and Kirkering will follow suit this year. Okay?
I like it. I think that's a good one.
Number 4, Aiden Miller and or Justin Crawford will appear this season.
You weren't kidding.
Both of these guys down in spring training made enough of an impression that I think we will see, if not one, both of them at some point. If there is an injury, and this was really highlighted when the Phillies sent Crawford to AAA. When they sent him to AAA, the messaging was, you are one step away. One injury, one move. And I think if there's an outfield injury, Crawford would be the candidate to get that first call. And last year, Trea Turner got hurt. I wonder if they saw enough from Aiden Miller. If Turner got hurt again this time around, would they pass over Sosa and go right to Miller at shortstop?
I think it's a possibility. You and I talked about it before. Aiden Miller, they love him. I think he might be up this year. Remember, they brought Rojas up way early, and everyone was shocked when he came up. I think they could do the same with Miller or Crawford.
I got my team awards. We'll do that a little bit later on in the show before the first pitch. When we come back, Dave Gallagher, 9-year Major League Baseball veteran, former Philadelphia Philly. He's going to share his opening day memories, thoughts on the lineup. Is Dave Dombrowski right? Is the lineup insignificant? Is Rob Thompson right? It really doesn't matter all that much. We'll ask a former Major Leaguer next on the Sports Bash Live at Maynards in Margate.
You're listening to the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
And it just keeps getting better.
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
All right, welcome back. Quick Eagles news. The Eagles have brought back former offensive lineman Matt Pryor. He is back to add more depth to the offensive line. So more offensive line depth. Matt Pryor started a little bit. He was in, I think he was in Indianapolis, started with them. So Matt Pryor is back with the Eagles, and we'll have more on that at Football at 4. Geoff Mosher will be joining us. Yes, Football at 4, even when first pitch is at 4 o'clock. We got the Football at 4 here for you here on the Sports Fest. We're live at Maynards in Margate, and I'm telling you, it's not like crazy yet, but you're running out of stools. I mean, there's not many stools left for you. We already got a little bit of an early crowd. Last year on first pitch was like 4 o'clock. You couldn't move. I remember you got here late last year.
I did. I got here late to do the Nuggets live, and then I couldn't move. I could barely squeeze over to get my headset on. That's how packed it was. I think it'll be the same this year.
I would imagine about a half an hour. You got some time to get a stool. There's not many. There's only one in front of me right here. I don't know what it looks like on the other side, but if you want to actually, nope, this guy's coming back to get that stool. That one's his. By the way, I feel old. Dave Gallagher is going to join me in just a second. 9-year Major League Baseball veteran, former Philadelphia Philly, played with the Phillies in 1995. I feel old because I'm shaking people's hands, and I have tennis elbow so bad that I can't, actually do it. It's, sad. Dave Gallagher, I don't know that you're feeling the tennis elbow yet, baseball player over there, but, oh, man, it's good to have you back. It's opening day, pal. How are you?
A Kansas City Chiefs fan for over 50 years, so I have to congratulate you and all of your listeners. What an unbelievable Super Bowl win for the Eagles. That stung me for several days because of the way you guys won. You beat us in every category, including the coaching. And I do want to say there's 2 guys on that roster that I really I was happy for. Barkley, who I thought, man, it's a good thing that he got to showcase his talent on a good team. I'm happy for him because you would all know better than I do. He just seems like the right kind of guy. And Jalen Hurts, I've been a big believer in him. And you know his dad was a coach because this guy has always been accountable. And I admire that about him. So I was happy for him as well. But congratulations to you guys on that Super Bowl win.
Yeah, Dave, I did see you posting a lot on the X platform about the Kansas City Chiefs. So, yes, our listeners appreciate that. All right, you mentioned it is opening day. So, number one, before we get some thoughts on the Phillies, because there are some interesting things. Their lineup today, a little interesting. Opening day as a guy who played in 9 opening days, at least in your career and obviously in high school and minor leagues and stuff. What is it like being a professional on that first day, even today as a guy who played in the league, knowing that baseball's back?
It's such a good feeling. It's exciting, regardless of how old you get. You know, I played the game until I was 36. Even in my 30s, opening day was always special. A couple of them stand out in my mind. One of them was playing Yankees. There were snow flurries. And I remember everybody was so wrapped up in how cold it was. And I looked across the field, and in front of the dugout, Don Mattingly was playing catch with one of his teammates. Just couldn't wait for the game to start. That's the spirit of that guy. And when you see somebody like that enjoys the game, money goes out the window. You're playing for the love of the game. Nothing better than opening day. If anything, the players as athletes that are in a performance-based business, you have to learn to control those emotions, right? They can't get too excited. It's not football where you're going to go hit somebody. You've got to be under control so that you can perform your craft.
Yeah, you get the opening day and everybody wants to overthink and overanalyze things. That's just the nature. But today, I want to get your thoughts, Dave, on some of the comments recently. Dave Dombrowski came out and basically said that you'd be surprised at how kind of irrelevant the batting lineup is. Is he right about that? Do you look at the batting? Do we make too much about the batting order? Because today, the Phillies have put Trea Turner in the leadoff spot. Schwarber will hit in the 4-hole today. Now, Rob Thompson said they might switch that, or that they likely will switch that Schwarber will hit leadoff against right-handed pitchers, and Turner will hit leadoff against left-handed pitchers. So, number one, do you think that the lineup configuration, that there's too much made of it?
No, I don't think that at all. In fact, I might actually think the opposite. I think you can win and lose games, and most of the time it goes unseen. There's no way to measure whether you'd win a game if a certain guy hit leadoff or a certain guy batted in a run-producing spot in the batting or in the middle of the lineup. All you can do is wonder. But there are some key things. For me, Kyle Schwarber hitting leadoff, although he's gotten his body much more lean over the last year and a half, he moves better. But I wouldn't want him on in front of Turner, a guy who can steal you if he wants to. He can steal you 50 bases in a year. It almost slows the game down for you. So, and I do think Kyle Schwarber will be Kyle Schwarber, whether he hits leadoff or fourth. So I don't think his discipline of the strike zone changes. I don't think the amount of damage he does changes. Will he be pitched around? Well, they got the depth in their lineup that you're going to have to face somebody hitting after him that swings a pretty good bat, whether it's Real Muto or Castellanos, Kepler, maybe Bohm. So, no, I think, this year maybe more than ever, you got the Braves and the Mets that all want a piece of the pie. I think every game's going to have meaning to it when you look back and you're entering into that playoff picture.
By the way, Dave, the direct quote from Dave Dombrowski says, "You'd be surprised how insignificant it is," when he was asked about the importance of lineup construction.
Yeah, I don't agree with it. I just don't. I mean, I'm not a disagreeable person, but I
well, I guess I would ask you then, and I don't know if you had a spot in the line. I know you bounced around, played with a bunch of different teams, so maybe you don't have the spot that you like. But if you're hitting leadoff one day, and then I say you're hitting leadoff one day and you're hitting fourth the next day, do you think that's something that guys who hit leadoff or hit fourth feel comfortable with?
Well, that's a great way of asking that question, because comfort is different than, say, approach. Because one of the things it's so touchy. You've heard, your listeners, and you have heard me talk about Trea Turner in the last couple of years. He's a free swinger, and that's when he's at his best. Hit leadoff sometimes, like if you're facing a guy that doesn't have command as a starter. My mentality, a guy who hit leadoff in second most of my career, would probably be, I'm going to try to get deep in the count on him early in the game. Let me see, maybe I can draw a walk, because my mentality is we want a W. How we get it, I don't care. I know the game has changed, but if I can get on base via a walk, a hit by pitch, a base hit, and set the table for guys like Harper, Bohm, Schwarber, then that would be my job. With Trea, I'm not sure if they sat down with him and say, change your mentality. We don't want you chasing pitches out of the zone, because that puts you in between as a hitter.
Yeah.
Right? You start saying to yourself, let me make sure I get a good pitch here, middle in, and you end up taking a pitch that's a strike on the outside corner, or you're hesitant. Let me make sure it's a strike before I, let it fire. And you hit a lot of nice pop-ups and fly balls, but you don't drive the ball. He's of a mentality of, like, he likes to swing the bat early and often. So you might be asking him to do something he's not too familiar with, but I do. When I look at the structure of their team, I like this lineup. Are they still going with Gore, the lefty?
Gore's pitching today for Washington. The lineup for the Phillies today, you've got Turner, Harper, Bohm, Schwarber, Real Muto, Kepler, Castellanos, Stott, and then Marsh.
Yeah, so you've got, 5 left-handed hitters, but it is what it is. So the structure of their roster right now, you're certainly not going to sit a Stott or a Bohm, or Kepler, rather, as guys that are left-handed hitters facing a lefty, not this early in the season.
Right.
So it looks to me like they're going to roll the dice a little bit and see, can this lineup produce, especially the lefties facing a lefty? If they can, I don't see straight platoons with this team. I was part of 2 straight platoons, maybe 3, where, I faced one was with the Phillies with Jim Eisenreich. Some of your listeners probably remember. that would have been what, 95. That's how old
95.
I am.
Yep, 95.
I faced all lefties, and he had, you may remember, he had Tourette's, so he was on medication and didn't respond very well on day games. So I had all lefties in day games where I started, and he had all righties, and it was a productive platoon. That's a mentality. You know, you have to accept it and then get after it as a duo, not hoping the other guy does poorly so I can get more starts. It's a mentality. I don't see that with the Phillies. I don't think that they're looking at wanting to have a straight platoon. I think they'd prefer that guys like Marsh and Kepler can stick in a lineup against both righties and lefties and produce enough.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, by the way, we're talking about opening day. Max Kepler said it's hard to go to sleep before his first season opener with the Phillies. Said, quote, "This is an opportunity of a lifetime." And, you know, he's the guy that they added. He's the one difference in this lineup, Dave. Did they do enough after watching this team in the playoffs the last couple of years? Is adding Max Kepler enough for you to say, yeah, they have gone to the next level? They've come up short, but they're now there.
I would say here's what I believe how they processed this. They won 95 games last year. But then they fizzled out in the playoffs, which is everything to them. You know, it's everything. They don't want to make the playoffs. They want to win the World Series. That's the mentality, I'm sure. But when they got together as a staff and had all that time to think this through, I believe they were okay coming back with the same players or one minor adjustment with Kepler. But what has to change, and I've heard rumors that they've talked about it, is pre-pitch approach across the board. You know, because if you can hit with a two-strike approach, in other words, stay back and cover all possible types of pitches that are about to be thrown to you. Every guy might have his own stand. It can be different from each other, but you start to have competitive at bat. Well, that isn't short term. That's long term. So you've been in the game, Mike. You've coached it. You still coach it. You know when you see a hitter that's doing well, a lot of times it's when he's driving the ball to the opposite gap. That doesn't mean everything is going to the opposite gap. That just means he's staying on pitches, and he puts it naturally. They rarely do that. And that once you have an approach that makes sense like that, you can apply it anywhere you want. It doesn't have to just be two strikes. It can be second and third with nobody out. And now I'm going to stay back to steal pitches because we need these runs to touch home plate.
Yeah.
Can't strike out in that situation. I know it happens. I'm sure I've done it. But I know I didn't do it that often. I really know I didn't do it that often because of the approach I took in that situation. So,
well, I want to get you out. I want to get you out on this one. All right. I know the game's about to start here in 15 minutes. Everyone wants to kind of settle in and get their spots. I'm at spring training the other day. We're in Clearwater. Castellanos at the plate. Pitcher's on the mound. Slider outside, way out of the zone. Whale swings at it. Pitcher follows right back up. Another slider, way out of the zone. Castellanos, one-hand swing, misses it. And the fan says, how do you not see that? How do you know it's coming? Dave, do you know it's coming? What do you say when you see a guy like Castellanos swinging at the same pitch out of the zone year after year?
Yeah, unfortunately, I know that one all too well. I hated the slide. I hated it. And for years in the minor leagues, I kept thinking I'll never get to the big leagues if I keep chasing that slider. But here, I'll walk it backwards because this is what I had to do. I have to see the slider better. That's what I was telling myself, because I'm not swinging at it because it's a slider outside. I'm swinging at it because I think it's a baseball in his hand on the outside corner. I'm not seeing it long enough. So what does that mean? I have to wait longer. Well, how do I wait longer? By thinking pre-pitch. Let me drive the ball the other way. Because if I'm only trying to hit it the other way, I'm hitting it deeper and I'm seeing it longer. And that's when I started to lay off. Not all the time. I wish it could be all the time. When it was a nice tight slider and it was done properly, they still got me to chase. But I chased much less. And I started laying off the slider. Wasn't so much learn how to hit it. It was learn how to see it long enough to lay off it when it's a ball.
I think it's all people are asking for, right? Being able to recognize the pitcher's hand.
Mike, I think that's the difference for the team. If they can apply that collectively, that type of an approach and hone in on it, they'll win their share of games. They'll be in the playoffs, and I think that might be the ticket to push them over the top and win the World Series. They got the pitching.
Yes, they
got
do.
That. And Suarez will come back hopefully healthy and just, boost that staff maybe at least around the All-Star break. If he can pull that off, then we'll be even better.
Dave Gallagher, everybody, Jersey guy up in there in the Hamilton area, Mercer County Community College, played for 9 seasons in the majors, 7 different ball clubs, and always kind enough to join us right here. Another season of having Dave's insight right here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. All right, Dave, enjoy your opening day, pal.
All right, good luck, Philly fans.
All right, there's a great breakdown. That was unbelievable. Hearing about how you have to approach to try to lay off that outside slider. I'm watching the game the other day. Slider outside, boom, swing and a miss. Everybody, how do you swing at that? It's coming. It's not as easy as it seems. I can certainly vouch for that. It's not easy to lay off that thing.
No, it's not at all. But, it continues to happen year in and year out for guys like Castellanos. But, you only have so long to get ready for that pitch, right? It's coming at you at 90 miles an hour.
You heard what he said. If they can make that adjustment, that's going to be the difference in putting them over the top. That's right about that.
I agree with that.
I think we all agree with that, right?
Yep.
We're 15 minutes till first pitch. Actually, about 20 minutes. A 4:05 first pitch today. And the Sports Bash is live. When we come back, I'll finish up with my MVP, my Cy Young, and all my different awards. 4 o'clock, we got football at 4 on the way. The Nuggets are in town. And then 5 o'clock tonight, Danny Briere's press conference. We will have it live on the Sports Bash. If you're not at Maynards yet, get on down here. Got a great crowd kind of forming right now for first pitch of the Phillies and the Nationals. It's the Sports Bash live at Maynards at Margate on 97.3 ESPN.
Hey, it's Mike Gill. Who's cutting down the nets this year? Get in on all the tournament action at ESPN Bet Sportsbook. Go from tracking the latest upsets to placing bets in just a few taps. All tournament long, new customers can get $100 in bonus bets when you make your first $10 wager. Download the ESPN Bet Sportsbook app and sign up with promo code RADIO100 to get started today. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details. All right, first pitch in about 15 minutes from now. Sports Bash live at Maynards and Margate, the world famous Maynards and Margate. Yeah, if you've never been to Maynards and Margate, you haven't lived.
No, you have not. I love it here. I love it. I've come here in the summer, not during the Phillies game, not during the Sports Bash.
Well, I still live around the corner from here, and let me tell you,
wow.
I've had some nights in here before.
I'm sure you have. You probably have a lot of memories.
Let me go to the team awards. Ready?
Okay.
MVP. I'm going Trea Turner.
Ooh, I like it.
For the Phillies. These are the Phillies team awards.
So
I'm not saying Trea Turner's winning the league MVP.
Gotcha.
For Phillies team MVP, I'm going Trea Turner.
Gotcha.
I think the whispers of him getting moved from shortstop, Aiden Miller, hitting leadoff, all of that will contribute to him being the guy this year.
I'll tell you what, I hope you're right. He needs to have a big year. He has not lived up to his contract yet. He hasn't. He's been good. He batted just under 300 last year, but he needs to have a big moment for the Phillies this year, and he's got to have multiple big moments this year. I hope you're right on that prediction.
Cy Young. Jesus Luzardo.
Really?
I know Wheeler is the easy pick, but I'm going to go outside the box, and here's why. I think Luzardo will get a lot of wins and rack up a ton of strikeouts because he's going to be matched up constantly with the other team's fourth or fifth guy a lot of times.
You know, I like when you go outside the box. However, it's going to be Wheeler.
Bounce back candidate of the season. Not a lot of them. I'm going to go Bryson Stott. I got him 278, 17 homers, 73 RBI.
He needs to have a big bounce back year. He's going to be their X factor throughout the entirety of the season.
I'm worried about I don't think Brandon Marsh can hit lefties.
I think that's pretty well known at this point.
And my surprise of the season is Max Kepler will turn into a fan favorite, I believe. 268, 23 homers, 79 RBI. In the end, I see the Phillies winning 96 games this season.
I like it, Gill, but Kepler, you're a little too high on Kepler for me.
You remember this moment.
I will.
Max Kepler, he'll be the surprise. He'll be the fan favorite. Your favorite, Geoff Mosher from Football at 4, is coming up next.
home of the Philadelphia Eagles.
They've got him again!
Sixers.
Bang! It's good! Ball game!
And Flyers.
Tipped in front of the net!
97.3 ESPN. WENJ. WENJ HD. Millville, Atlantic City. A Town Square media station serving all of South Jersey. 97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast.
Just hungry to bring back another Lombardi to Philly. The fans deserve it. Our team deserves it. Culture begs for it.
Now live, this is Football at 4.
And Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. We do have some Eagles news today, by the way. They are bringing back an old friend. We have an old friend to the show, Geoff Mosher, who generally doesn't do Thursdays, but he is here on a Thursday filling in for Andrew DeCecco. DeCecco will be on tomorrow's show. But Geoff Mosher, Matt Briere is back with the Philadelphia Eagles. This is a guy who was here, played a little bit, had a couple spot starts here and there, was a draft pick of theirs, I think TCU, if I remember accurately. Spent some time over with the Indianapolis Colts, and now he is back. So a nice move here by Howie Roseman.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mike, good to catch up with you again. It's been so long since we've talked. And I see that you're having fun in our – I was with you a couple of years ago on opening day, I believe, in that same exact spot that you're at now. We watched Phillies Braves on opening. I believe it was Kyle Schwarber's first ever at-bat for a Philly was a home run to lead off. So that was fun. But, yeah.
Yep, right here, Maynards and Margate. We were actually in the opposite corner from where we are right now, but it's starting to pack up in here, yes.
I remember. So it looks like you're having a good time there. And, yeah, the Eagles are having a good time replenishing the cupboard with familiar faces. And Matt Briere is a guy who he was a part of that draft a couple of years ago, Mike. I mean, that looks really – what a fantastic draft. They only picked 5 players from that draft, but it was Goddard, Maddox, Sweat, Matt Briere, and Jordan Mailata. So go figure. I mean, you nailed every single one of those picks, you know. But he's still in the league. Stoutland likes guys that he's comfortable with, Mike. We've seen that with bringing back guys like Jack Driscoll last year after he left and he came back. And Briere is a guy who can play right tackle, he can play right guard. Now, look, they've added to this spot over the last few years. So to me, Matt Briere is a guy who's hoping to make the team. And being a Stoutland project will help him. But, they just added Kendall Lamb the other day. They still got Darian Kennard. They got Tyler Steen, so they're not done with the draft. So they've obviously got a lot of depth here on the right side of the line. And it'll be up to these guys to see how it shakes out.
Well, you talk about depth on the right side of the line. Yeah, Matt Briere, by the way, was the starting right tackle last year for the Bears. He started 15 games, and by all accounts, he was probably the best guy they had up front last year. Now, their offensive line wasn't very good, but he did start 15 games. And I guess that goes to the question, lost Fred Johnson. They brought in Lamb last week, and now you have Briere and Lamb. And I believe he's played some guard in the past, even here in Philadelphia.
Well, at one point, Mike, he was the starting left tackle for the Indianapolis Colts. I don't know if you meant Lamb or meant Briere on that, but Briere has played all over the map. Now, he shouldn't have been the starting left tackle for the Colts, and just like you mentioned with the Bears, you saw how they reacted to their offensive line. They basically remade it, the entire offensive line this offseason. So Briere is a guy who has always been able to get in there, hold his own for a little bit, kind of like Fred Johnson last year. Fred Johnson played well at times. But he was also compensated for it other times. Now, again, Matt Briere's got to beat out a bunch of players here. So we'll see how it shakes out. But his familiarity with Stoutland certainly helps.
No doubt about it. All right, so Matt Briere is back for the Philadelphia Eagles. And, you're a football-starved town where the reserve offensive tackle actually has conversation, and we know who he is. Now, obviously, he's played here before. But he started 15 games, Matt Briere, for the Bears last season. Matt Briere is back with the Philadelphia Eagles. I want to, yesterday we talked a little bit about the division, and we talked a little bit about where the Commanders are because we were looking at power rankings. Then I was thinking about it last night. For you, What is the ceiling of that Commanders team? Where do you look at that team right now? They went to the NFC Championship game. Are they a legitimate Super Bowl contender?
Not right this second, I don't think. I think they still need, like we discussed, they still need somebody on offense who is a dynamic young playmaker. You know, McLaurin's a good playmaker. Debo's a good playmaker. Their running game doesn't really have one. I think that they could really use one in the running back core, and I think that they can use another a wide receiver, downfield wide. You know, Debo's not a downfield wide receiver. He's a run after the catch. He can make a 15 to 20-yard catch into a 30 to 40-yard catch. He can also run the ball a little bit. McLaurin can do it. I'm not taking anything away from McLaurin, but in nowadays NFL, you need two guys to be able to do that, and to me, they really only have one field stretcher in McLaurin.
Yeah, you know, I don't know where you are, and we touched on it a little bit yesterday, but Debo Samuel, what he brings to that offense, some people think he's kind of washed. Some people think that he's done. He gets hurt too much. But, you know, you have him in that lineup now and what he adds for McLaurin over there. But what I'm interested in is year number 2 of Jaden Daniels. We saw C.J. Stroud his first season, and he was awesome. Last year, I guess he took a little bit of a step back. That had some circumstances with injuries. But do you look at Jaden Daniels as a guy who is a definitive take a step forward type of guy? You know, they had Robert Griffin III here years ago, and you're like, we're going to have to deal with this guy for a while. And then obviously injuries, that didn't happen. But take the injury situation out. Is Daniels a guy that, you got to deal with this guy for the next 10 to 12 years?
Yeah, I think that there's more reasons to feel that he'll have a very good and improving second year as opposed to C.J. Stroud. You know, if you go back to Houston, they did add Stephon Diggs in the offseason to try to really go over the top, but they lost Nico for a while. They lost Tank Dell again. Their offensive line did not play well. Their offensive coordinator, Bobby Slowick, did not do a good job. Their running game was stale outside of Mixon. So I look at the Washington team, Mike, and I think Cliff Kingsbury is a guy who's accomplished more as an offensive coordinator than Bobby Slowick has. He's got pretty good weapons here. They're going to keep adding, and they've added to their offensive line. You know, they added Tunsil. That's going to help move Brandon Coleman to left guard, I assume, who did a yeoman's job as a rookie at left tackle. They still have more they can add to it. I just think that, and plus, as good as Stroud is, and I honestly don't think Stroud was the issue as much as the offense around him last year, Jaden Daniels can run like Stroud can't. So even if things break down, Jaden Daniels can break the back of the way Jalen Hurts does, using his legs and really foil a good defense in that regard. That's not really C.J. Stroud's game. So when the protection really broke around Stroud and when the offensive running game wasn't there, you saw that impact the quarterback in a way that I don't think it would hurt Washington. In fact, I think the moves Washington's made is only going to help their offense.
All right, Geoff, I want to get some thoughts as we look at the draft coming up. You know, we're inside a month now to the NFL draft. 32, I want to get your thoughts on this because it's a spot that the Eagles had a couple of years ago when they won the Super Bowl. Yep. They traded out of that spot. But they got a second-round pick. They moved down into the second round, which I think was pick 52. So they moved down 20 spots. They got a fourth-round pick. They moved up 7 spots in the draft because they also sent a fourth-round pick with pick 32 to move up 7 spots in the fourth round. So they ended up with a second-round pick, a fourth-round pick, and then they got a second-rounder in the following draft, which ended up being Miles Sanders. The Ravens did that because they were targeting a quarterback, Lamar Jackson. So is that why they got more compensation, or do you think they can get a similar type of deal for pick 32 this year?
Well, it depends on the team, what the team wants, right? If there's a quarterback there, and at this point, you know, I don't know if we're talking about like a Dylan Gabriel or I can't imagine Gabriel's going to be a first rounder, but maybe a Tyler Shuff, the guy from Louisville that some teams really like, then maybe you see that kind of a move to be made there and you can get something for it. But I mean, it doesn't have to be a quarterback because last year the Panthers traded up to the 32 to get Xavier Legette. I mean, most of the time when a team does it, they want that fifth year option, right? They want to have that control for a fifth year at a decent price, which is sort of mind-scratching that the Panthers did it for a wide receiver. But they really believed in Legette, I guess. And they wanted that. Maybe they felt he'd need a year, although he played all right as a rookie. But it just sort of depends on what that team wants if they move into 32 and who's there.
One of the things you guys over at Inside the Birds, Greg Cosell was a part of it. You broke down edge rushers and some of the possibilities at that spot there. Greg Cosell looked at the edge and the inside interior line. Those are two areas where we can totally envision the Eagles taking at 32. So how does he see those spots in the draft?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good edges as there typically are, and there's a lot of good defensive tackles. I like the defensive tackle class because it's deep. It's got guys of really good, similar athleticism, similar production. In fact, not only did Greg do that, but we had Sam Finkel, our analytics expert, do a really nice breakdown in comparison of this year's edge and interior defensive line class, how it compares athletically and productively versus past 5 years of first rounders and then versus past 5 years of top 100 picks. And it's a good class. And, they got Milton Williams, Mike, in the third round 4 years ago. A guy who tested really well athletically, was a productive player at Louisiana, I mean. And I suspect that there'll be some second and third rounders, both at the edge and tackle position, that can come in and play.
I do want to get your thoughts, too. We talk about pick 32 as a valuable trade chip. They have 4 fifth-round picks, Geoff. How valuable can they be in terms of moving?
Oh, I mean, invaluable, Mike. If they listen, they've done both.
Would you give up 3-5 to move to a 2? Would somebody take 3-5 to get out of the second? You know what I mean? Like, is it that big of a possibility, or are you talking about, hey, you could put 2 5s together and maybe get into the bottom of the third, something like that?
Yeah, I think it's more that. I mean, I don't think a bunch of 5s is going to get you an extra 2, but I mean, it allows you some maneuverability in the third and fourth rounds, and the Eagles have done pretty well in the third and fourth rounds, right? This is where Milton Williams has come. This is where Josh Sweat has come. This is where Nakobe Dean has come from. So this is where Tyler Steen, their projected starting right guard this year, if he beats it out, will have come from. So this is a third and fourth round are big for them.
It's filling up in here, by the way, and the Phillies went 1, 2, 3 in the first. Trea Turner struck out as the leadoff guy. Why are they hitting Turner leadoff? Go back to Schwarber.
That's what I'm saying. I've been saying it for weeks.
Give it till tomorrow.
We'll see what happens on Saturday's show.
Yeah.
Let me get your thoughts. People don't think about this, but they have 20 picks over the next couple years. How next year and the year after's draft could impact this draft day?
That's a good question. Certainly, you can use some future picks to move up. I mean, you don't want to pick 20 players, to be honest with you. That's too much, So what you want to do is have good raw draft pick allocation, and that allows you to package picks and move up, or package picks and a player to move up in the draft, certainly.
All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Geoff Mosher for football at 4, as obviously Phillies opening day here. And we know opening day is a big day in the baseball world. The draft is a huge day. It's really, between now and the draft. They just signed Matt Pryor today. Geoff, we always say, they're going to do anything else. But between now and the draft, I guess don't be surprised if they keep adding these little pieces around the peripherals.
Do not be surprised. I mean, they're still – I think now they're pretty good on the O-line. Doesn't mean they can't add more later, but I don't think there'll be a rush to add anybody else at guard or tackle. But safety could be a spot. Corner, obviously still a spot where you could add. Linebacker, Mike, they're thin. I mean, think about Nakobe Dean coming off an injury, right? So right now you're looking at, if they had to play a game today, it would be Zach Bond, $17.5 million, all of them. Next to Jeremiah Trotter, right? That's not exactly – that's fine because the team likes him, but who's your third linebacker? Because Ben Van Summeren's also coming off an injury. This is an area where, they're thin. They could use some veteran help there.
Well, that's where you would – you've been around and talked to people about this team. Is Jeremiah Trotter a guy that they would say, yeah, we're comfortable with him starting games?
Starting? Yeah. I mean – yes, they're comfortable with him. You heard Vic Fangio say, the future is now in the playoffs. They weren't afraid to play him if they had to, but you can't go into a game with just 2 healthy linebackers.
Right.
And I don't want to – I mean, they do have guys like O'Shawn Mathis and Dallas Gant. So, I mean, they could make do, but I'm talking about, you need some NFL-proven linebackers.
Real quick, we're talking with Geoff Mosher, Football at 4. We just went over some edge rushers and how talented. The fact that they brought in Ozolari, Oche, Jalix Hunt, they have Bryce Huff is also here. That doesn't prevent them from saying, we're going to take another edge if that's the guy we like best.
Not at all. I mean, the whole point of having all these players so that you could line up and play today, right, is that it allows you to not force it in the draft. You can just take the best player available. If the best player available is an edge, and you get, I'm not going to say Abdul Carter, because let's say you get this kid Donovan Ezeraku, who, by the way, I just found out is from Williamstown, from my neck of the woods. I had no idea.
The Boston College kid? Yeah.
Yeah. For some reason, I'm usually keen on that kind of stuff. But I did not, that one eluded me. But let's say they draft him, okay? Then he goes to camp, and he's obviously making the team, and then it gives you some optionality. If you're still not happy with Bryce Huff, if he's even still on the team, you trade him. If Josh Uche doesn't have a great camp, okay, you can cut him. It's only a 1-year deal. So that goes for any position that they've got.
All right, Geoff Mosher, enjoy opening day, man. The Phillies just made a nice play. The little crowd behind us got into that one. I didn't see it. Earnshaw can tell us what happened on that. But Phillies went down 1-2-3 in the first, and now Wheeler is towing the rubber here in the bottom half of the first inning for the Washington Nationals. It's opening day, but football at 4 never goes away. It never takes a day off. And Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast. Make sure you check out all their content over at InsideTheBirds.com and on all podcasting platforms. All right, Moshe. Thanks, buddy.
Mike, I'm calling it right now. Big bounce back year for Jose Alvarado. He's going to lead all Phillies relievers in strikeouts and innings.
Oh, he went bounce back Alvarado. That's a good one. I wish I would have thought. I wrote that article on the airplane.
He was awesome in the spring, man. So I'm just hoping that
he was.
See you, buddy.
You're absolutely right. All right, see you, Moshe. All right, Geoff Mosher, everybody. Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, and live video streaming on the X platform and on YouTube at Mike Gill Show. All right, so a 1-2-3 inning for the Phils offense and a 1-2-3 inning for Wheeler in the first. So we go to the second inning, nothing.
Quick start. Trea Turner strikes out to start the game.
Was it looking or swinging?
I believe it was swinging. I was there was a couple people in front of the TV. But yeah, he strikes out to start.
Now, Schwarber's leading off the second, so there you go. He's leading off.
He's leading off. We got our wish.
I thought about
this. People got our wish.
I was saying this before to somebody. I said, if you hit Schwarber in the 4-hole and you go 1-2-3, he leads off the second, so he's right back to leading off again. So you get the best of both worlds. You get Turner leading off the first, you get Schwarber leading off the second.
Yeah, because he'll go down 1-2-3 to start the game. I mean, it really doesn't start till the second inning anyway.
It would have been so apropos for Turner to hit a launch one as the leadoff man. And then the whole thing is, you can't move him out the leadoff home run on opening day.
It would have switched in a millisecond. The whole discussion around the leadoff spot would have totally switched. But
ain't lying.
But both go 1-2-3, Nats and the Phillies as well.
All right, it's filling up in here now, man.
Yeah, I mean, I could see you. You were like all over the place with Mosher on there. I mean, you're looking at it's loud in here. It got crowded quick.
It's not only loud; it is like packed. I mean, every seat at the. I want to say the good part about Maynards and Margate. There's the bar stools. Pretty much are all taken right now.
Yes,
but there's a lot of room on the other side of the bar. Like back on that other side, there's a lot of depth back there, so you can kind of
fit in.
Yeah, you can walk in, and there's 1, 2. These 3 TVs are divine for us. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I mean, you're looking at like 11 TVs within our eyesight.
Everywhere you turn, there's a television. I mean, everywhere you turn.
These 3 are the ones right here. There's a base hit. Who got the first base hit? Leadoff man Schwarber.
Leading off the second inning. I mean, this is how you do it. That's how you lead off a game.
Schwarber leads off the game. 3 o'clock hour of the bash. 4 o'clock hour of the bash. It's brought to you by Broadleaf's Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, your trusted source for heating, plumbing, service, and installation for generations. Call them 609-390-3907 online at broadlees.net. All right, we're live. Coming up, Earnshaw, Nicky Nuggets is on site today. So, by the way, the crowd is a big fan of the Nuggets. People coming up saying they love the Nuggets. They got a big yell, a big round of applause when I introduced you today.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's a live Nuggets. There's nothing better than a live Nugget.
Live Nuggets here on the Sports Bash. And, of course, don't forget my friends at Game Day Men's Health. in Egg Harbor Township. If you are chasing peak performance, reigniting intimacy, or simply want to feel your best, game day, it's Phillies game day, and they have Men's Health defining a new era in men's health, delivering premium testosterone replacement therapy and removing the stigma around ED, supporting weight loss, medical treatments, vitamin therapy. They have all of the tricks of the trade. Stop in, free consultation, get yourself asking all the key questions. Hey, I'm getting older. What do I need to do? And they'll check you out. They'll get you the whole treatment, 15 minutes in the lab. Tell them Mike Gill from the Sports Bash sent you. Here's the number, 609-365-7088, 365-7088, or online at GameDayMen'sHealth.com. All right, when we come back, the Nuggets are here. We got Knicks Nuggets coming up next on the Sports Bash on 97.3. Live from Maynards in Margate, 9306 Amherst Avenue.
This is the home of the Super Bowl champion, Philadelphia Eagles.
What a game. What a season. What a team. The greatest Eagles team in modern history.
97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's Eagles station. It's the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
And I am the voice of the voiceless.
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. We're live at Maynards at Margate. It is filling up in here, man. It is pretty crowded, actually. It's probably, I don't know, is it more crowded now than it was at this time last year when you got here?
It's close. It's getting close, I would say. I think it's right around the same, if I'm not mistaken. It's packed in
Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tables to our right. They're all taken.
Yep.
Every stool in front of us all the way around the bar are all taken. So if you're going to get here, make sure you sign in and see Nick, the intern, not Nick Earnshaw. When you walk into Maynards, straight ahead on the left is Nick, the intern, and he is signing everybody in.
He
and
is.
It seems that we have a lot of people here.
Yeah, we definitely do, and they're still coming in. I just saw a few more walk in through the door.
Yeah, remember, there's
It's
a back door,
packed.
too.
Yeah, oh, man, I forgot about that. So people were coming in on all sides.
I was trying to go outside today. It was a little windy, though. We were going to
Yeah,
do
a
the
little
show
cold.
outside today.
Today's good quarter zip weather for the indoors, though.
Knicks Nuggets are live on scene today, and they are brought to you by the Hub, gear that works as hard as you do. Nick Earnshaw, host of the Shift podcast. If you're a baseball fan, check out the Shift podcast. Those guys do a really good job talking baseball. They do Phillies and the whole landscape of Major League Baseball on the Shift. And, of course, he is the producer of The Locker Room.
All right, we got a few nuggets to get to. It's happy opening day to everybody out here, and I got to start with an opening day nugget. So before the game, if you didn't see any of the social media and some of the pressers that were going on, the impromptu media availabilities, Bryce Harper was talking before the game, and you know what he declared, Mike? Do you want to know?
Summer of George.
I wish. I love the Summer of George. That the daycare is no longer a thing. Bohm and Stott, no longer the daycare. Daycare is out for this year. They're getting rid of the daycare opening day to start it. I don't know how much I love that. I mean, they are older now at this point. I guess they've outgrown the daycare, but you can't keep the nickname?
It's like, you know, when you take your kid to the daycare and you have that special teacher that you connect with, you can't keep your kid in the daycare forever. That teacher says, hey, it's time to go to kindergarten. You got to move on. You got to start to get some separation. Otherwise, you never grow.
Yeah,
if you keep staying at the daycare, you want these kids to no longer be the daycare. He's right, Bryce Harper.
I like it, and here's why. I'll tell you why. Because with Bryce Harper, he sets the tone here, but Alec Bohm, he acted like he was in the daycare to end last season, right? So he's got to grow out of it and
how
mature.
much is Bohm? How much is Bohm because he was hurt?
Part of it, but he didn't have to act the way he did.
No, he had a bad attitude.
Attitude.
But I'm thinking his production had a little bit more to do with the fact that he wasn't 100% healthy because he was
True.
awesome.
I agree.
Bohm had a great year last year. He had a really good year last year.
Until he got hurt.
And then he got hurt. And I have to think that the production went down with the injury, and he just never got. Listen, what did he have? Like a broken hand or something?
Yeah, I think it was some arm related, I believe.
Yeah.
Something on the arm.
Listen, I know I like Bohm probably more than most people do. He can hit, man.
He can.
Is he a great hitter? No, he's a good hitter. He should be a guy that hits 6th or 7th. If you have him hitting 6th or 7th, you're a really good team. He should not be in the 3rd or 4th spot. I get that. But he's still a quality RBI run. He hits over 300 with runners in scoring position. He comes up in clutch situations now he has to do it in the playoffs. But I don't look. The Sixers had the night shift for a while. Remember that bench?
Yes.
The one year.
Yes.
But you got to evolve. You got to change. And the Phillies have not evolved or changed anything. But you know what has to evolve and change? The daycare needs to grow up.
Yeah, I agree with you that they do have to grow up. Alec Bohm can't be throwing temper tantrums in the dugout, throwing his helmet. He's got to mature and cool it a little bit. He's a great hitter. He was great last year, all right, until that injury when he fell apart. But he's got to keep a level-headed mindset, and that's huge for Bohm. Get rid of the daycare. Now, I do have a little bit of a problem. I like the post-game interviews, Mike. When they do the post-game interviews, they do all the funny shenanigans.
You think that's done?
I don't know if they're getting rid of the daycare. Does it mean the shenanigans are over? I still want to see the shenanigans. I think that makes this clubhouse fun. Now, remember, you did get rid of Garrett Stubbs. He's now in AAA as of right now, right? Marshawn's the backup
Did
catcher.
you see Stubbs at AAA, by the way, the picture he took?
Yes.
He's got the broomstick. He's kind of doing like he's riding the donkey.
Yeah.
You know, I think the Phillies said enough of this. We got to move on from this. We got to grow up.
So
he's
now,
He's the guy that was in the fraternity and was in his 7th year and still wanted to live in the frat house.
He was getting his master's. He was going for his master's, or he was just still taking classes to get his bachelor's, I guess, at this point.
It's time to move on.
So there, I guess, it feels like a little bit of a business tone heading in this year. No daycare, no Stubbs. Does that mean fun's out? No fun for the Phillies? I mean, you get rid of Stubbs. He was the guy in the
Fair
locker
question.
room.
I don't know.
Business, and that's it?
Where's the personality on this team?
I mean,
Not a lot of
they do
Trea
have it.
Turner's got the personality of, he's got Zippo. He has nothing.
Castellanos has a personality.
He's a weird dude, though, man. Listen, Harper's a weirdo. Harper's a weird guy.
He's a TikToker.
Yeah.
He's a big TikToker now. I don't know if you were locked into his TikToks, and he's making all those breads and all in the cooking.
I still don't have TikTok.
I'm gonna get you on there.
We have a station TikTok.
We
It
do.
actually does really well.
Yeah,
it's
does.
growing.
it's growing every day.
I'm just not a TikToker. I have too many apps on my phone.
So they got Bryce Harper, the TikToker. They get rid of Stubbs, the party animal, and they're getting rid of the daycare. I don't know what to make in the locker room now.
Hey, listen, hopefully they've matured. Listen, here's another thing. Somebody brought this up. How come no one says the Dodgers are an aging team? Their whole lineup is in their 30s. Everybody.
It's true, but they also just won a World Series.
It's true.
They won a World Series.
But I guess the point is, you can win a World Series with an aging lineup. You just can't suffer but the Dodgers suffered injuries last year and they persevered.
In their pitching staff. They had a ton of injuries on their pitching staff, overcame it because the bats were consistent, Mike. That was what was big for the Dodgers. Their bats were consistent. They were having timely hits. I mean, Freddie Freeman, game 1 of the World Series, won it for him with a timely hit. They were getting guys to produce. The Phillies, it's the weirdest thing. They all fall apart at the same time. Maybe the business approach is something they want to do heading into this year.
I'll tell you this. The group of guys that they have been very, very productive. However, they are streaky. They got a lot of streaky guys here. So you have to live and kind of die with that, and that's what this team's problem has been. But they've been relatively healthy. They have been relatively healthy. I mean, Harper's injury was surgery that kept him out through the offseason, and then he missed half the season. But once he got back, these guys have pretty much been healthy. They haven't had a major injury that has derailed a season for them.
No, not at all. And listen, business approach this year, daycare no longer. Will we see the shenanigans after the game and the post-game interviews? That's to be determined. Maybe we see one today. Who knows?
So you want to see the bubble gum and the
bubble
seeds?
Gum. Yes, I think it's fun. It makes everyone's loose and more, and not tightened up a little bit. I like the business approach. I like the growing up, but you can still have a little bit of fun without Stubbs there, and with daycare not being the daycare of old. I guess that just means no shenanigans. I guess we'll find out.
I said, you have Marchand filling in now. How does he fit in with these guys? Is the
he's
backup?
Been up, though,
is
but
the
he's been up.
Yeah, I'm just saying. But now he's there as the main guy.
Yeah.
He wasn't just there on borrowed time.
Right.
So, how important is the backup catcher? Is it more important than the vibe? That's the question.
That's the question we're going to find out this year. How are they going to start this season? If they start slow, that's going to be a question that creeps in. Was Stubbs the guy keeping this team together?
What do you value more, the backup catcher, or
the vibes,
or the vibes of the clubhouse?
Yeah, it's important. We can't just sit here and say it's not important to have a clubhouse culture of fun, a little bit of shenanigans, but you're winning baseball games. You can do that type of stuff. I don't know. If Stubbs isn't there, we're going to see. Maybe, do we see a difference? And do we see less of the shenanigans with the daycare, the retired daycare, heading into this year?
Yeah, and by the way, Stubbs will be up here at some point this year, because Real Muto and or Marchand will probably miss at least a little bit of time.
All right. Nugget number 2. Let's move along. And I want to go away from the daycare a little bit, but I want to talk about one of the Phillies' outlook heading into this year. I want to talk about Dave Dombrowski. Because Dombrowski, he did not make a ton of moves in the offseason, okay? We know the comments about the lineup. Do we think Dave Dombrowski is going to have to make massive moves before June?
No.
None.
No, I mean, this team should be in the race, competitive, fine, no problem in terms of – I don't think you're going to look at a team that's 10 games out of the playoffs in June or before June 1st.
Okay, so what day would you give Dave Dombrowski to make a move and start trying to go after guys?
I wouldn't be surprised if I said all along, I think he gives them till July 31st. He assesses this team. He looks over this roster. He sees where they are. He sees what the numbers look like and says, I gave this team, till the trade deadline. Nothing has really convinced me that we've changed our approach, changed our chase rate. Nothing's changed. I'm going to have to shake this up. And I don't know what that means. Do I try to trade Castellanos? Do I try to trade Marsh? Do I try to trade Bohm would be another guy that I guess would be.
He was a guy in the offseason that was talked about a lot, but then Rob Thompson would go on the MLB Network and deny it, that they weren't shopping Bohm. But all the rumors were pointing towards they wanted to shop Bohm. Like, how massive of a first half does he need to have to maybe even stay on this roster?
I don't think it's about him having a massive whatever. I think it's about the team. And if they look at this team and say, hey, he's having a good year, but we need to shake something up, and he's the guy that can help us get that right-handed bat that plays and hits in the 4-hole. And that kind of sounds counterproductive to say, hey, if Bohm's hitting 285 and he's got 20 homers,
right,
and you're going to say, well, that's the guy we're going to trade. Maybe not, but I'm just saying, Bohm, Castellanos, maybe even Stott. Is Stott struggling along? You got Aiden Miller. I said earlier, one of my predictions is that Aiden Miller will be up at some point.
I mean, listen, they love Aiden Miller. I mean, this kid has been likened to Mike Schmidt. I hate that they've done that to him, but he has. He has been likened to Mike Schmidt at times, and those comparisons have been there. He's one of the top prospects that we have seen in a Phillies uniform, and, it makes me wonder, Mike, with where they're at the deadline heading into this year, whether the pitching staff, you mentioned it in your predictions, Andrew Painter will be up at some point, and they're going to have trouble taking him out of this rotation. That's your prediction. I'm with you. The problem is, if they need a bat at the deadline, they can't give up a bat. They're going to have to trade somebody in their farm.
I disagree with that.
Why?
They can give up a bat if that bat is not producing.
Who is it, though? If it's is it?
Well, I gave you the three guys. It's the guys, to me, that they could try to trade would be Castellanos, Bohm, Marsh, and possibly Stott. They are the guys I think you could say, okay, we got to do something different, and it's one of these four guys that we have to do. Now, you might say, what I would say, well, what are you getting for those guys? I don't know. No, Stott, maybe someone says, hey, we like Bryson Stott. He's a young guy still. He's just not fit because he's
not working out.
He's left-handed. Yeah. I know you don't want
maybe he's not working out.
Same with Marsh. Maybe because you say, Marsh is lefty. We like him, but we're killed by the fact that he hits left-handed.
See, but then if you move on from Stott, let's say Stott's not having a great first half, they try and trade him. That means you bring up Aiden Miller. Does Turner get moved to second base and then Miller goes to short? Is that what you're going to go with, or are you going to move Miller over to second base? Miller is more of a shortstop, third baseman than a second baseman.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, in the middle of the year, I think the only way you see Aiden Miller is if Turner got hurt and it was. I hate this. I picked Turner to be the MVP of the team this year, but if he got hurt and it was significant, long term, and they said, you know what, instead of like last year when he got hurt for what did he miss, 4 to 6 weeks?
Yeah.
You went Sosa. I think if it was like a season-ending thing, they would say, you know what, rip the Band-Aid off. Let's go with Miller because Miller's ceiling is higher than Sosa's.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, listen, they brought Rojas up. That shocked everybody how quickly they brought him up. I mean, the bat didn't really work out, but the glove really did. So I wouldn't be shocked if they want to do it with Miller right away and bring him up at some point. We'll see what happens there. I do want to even mention this, though, Mike, because we're talking about trade deadline already. It's opening day, okay?
Well, they haven't scored yet.
Is it?
You're playing the worst team in the league.
I know. But is it weird that locally there hasn't been a ton of juice, it feels like, for opening day? Everyone's kind of been, it feels a little negative on the Phillies to open the year. I guess because of the way last year ended, et cetera, losing to the Mets, they didn't make a ton of moves in the offseason, right?
That's
and
what
nationally,
happens,
but nationally, People are loving this team. Power rankings everywhere.
I saw MLB Network today. I think it was Lauren Shahadi and Robert Flores. They both picked the Phillies to win the World Series.
I mean, MLB Network's picking them to win the World Series. Power rankings have them at like 2. It is one of the best teams in baseball.
They're one of the best teams.
And we're acting like this team is going to fall apart all of a sudden.
I don't think people think they're going to fall apart. I think people just think they're going to disappoint them.
I think, well, I do. I agree with that. I mean, I feel that way, and I think a lot of people do. I mean, they disappointed last year, losing to the Mets in the first round. That can't happen again. The bats have gone cold every year. World Series, NLCS, NLDS.
The Mets turned out to be
all
a pretty
at the same
good
time.
team.
They did, but they lost. They lost in the NLCS to the Dodgers.
Well, listen, the one thing you got to keep in mind is the Phillies fans have been to the playoffs now, a World Series loss, a championship and loss, a division series and loss. We've been down this road before where you won that World Series and then progressively got worse and worse and worse and worse and then went through the 10 years of the worst baseball you ever watched in your life.
It's like Groundhog Day. I mean, seriously, is it going to happen over and over again? The same thing going to happen like the 08 squad? I don't know. It's going to be a big year, and that's why I brought up the Dombrowski nugget, because is he going to be forced to make a move on from a prospect or an important piece to this team heading into the season? We'll find out at the deadline. So
I will say the one thing about Dombrowski is everywhere he's been,
he's
made big moves.
He's
been known in the past to not care about his farm system.
Right.
And he has not done that.
That's what shocked me, because he hasn't traded big-time prospects a ton. Like the Ada Mills are still here. The Painters are still here. The Crawfords are still here. I'm curious to see how he approaches this deadline. All right, moving along. Final nugget.
Wow.
3-pack of nugget.
Final nugget.
Nugget. And
look at this place, man.
This is getting crazy. By the way, before I get into this final nugget, all I did was tweet out something to start the game. Right.
You should order from the girl right here. She's waiting for you.
I know.
That's
I
the
know.
nugget.
I
want a nugget for the
on
nugget.
air. You want me to order her on air?
Yeah,
oh,
she's available.
She is waiting for me, because I was being difficult.
Do you know what you want?
Not a clue. In my head, maybe I'll just get flats. I mean, make it easy.
Jeez.
Make it easy on everybody. Get some flats and eat them in front of Mike Gill. But by the way, I tweeted out, all I said was Trea Turner strikes out to start the season in the leadoff spot. And I'm getting a lot of flack for that. I mean, just saying. I just pointed out a fact, letting people know that he struck out. That's
a Philly fan reaction, right?
Just saying.
Reacting to the one at bat of the whole season.
All I said was that he struck out. I mean, it was a big conversation heading into the game. He strikes out, and then I tweeted out Kyle Schwarber got a base hit to lead off the second.
Right. I'm just doing the play-by-play.
I'm just saying. I'm giving it out there.
Yeah.
Only for the leadoff spots, though.
Yep.
All right, moving along. I actually want to talk a little Sixers. Nugget number 3.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, and I feel like this has not been talked about enough just because it is opening day. And it came out last night. Nick Nurse, after the game, before the game.
Just heard a guy proclaim World Series, by the way.
Oh,
you hear
boy.
that?
Here we go.
You know what you want?
Not just yet.
Oh,
Not just
geez.
yet. I'll get it in a second.
No. We're trying to time this out perfectly.
I will time it out. Give me a second. I got to get to nugget number 3 first. Nick Nurse told reporters before the game last night that Embiid's consultations with specialists are wrapped up and a final decision and action on what they are doing is completed. On his knee, an announcement should happen soonish. Mm-hmm. This is from Kyle Neubeck reporting that. Nick Nurse, before the game, said this yesterday.
I did hear that. I don't know what to make of that.
What do you make of that? I mean, is that cryptic? That's a little cryptic, in my opinion.
I don't know if he even knows what he was talking about there. I mean, I think he's just like, you ask me a question, you want me to give you an answer, I'm going to give you a word salad. Right? The Embiid thing, I don't think we're going to have an answer to. We're going to be going through this all season. What do you know about Embiid? Oh, what's he going to do this all season? Oh, is he going to be ready for the start of training camp? Oh, is he going to play in the preseason? Oh, is he going to be ready to start? I mean, this is going to happen until October.
How much longer are we going to do this? Remember, there was reports maybe he retires. Maybe they could consider that.
I don't know that those were any.
The
any
knee,
credence to them.
The knee. I don't know what else you do at this point. They tried everything this past year. They tried shooting him up with stuff before the game, right? Like doing all this stuff with his knee, and it just hasn't worked out. At some point you got to be like, I don't even know what you do anymore.
we don't even know what's wrong with the knee.
That's what I mean. He's been consulting. I mean, it's like the doctors haven't even seen this at all.
I'm done trying to figure out what's wrong with Joel and the knee and what they're going to do with it and how they're going to treat it and what they're going to do. Like I have no idea. Like they've never even said what's wrong with it.
No,
they've never said like he's out for the season because.
No, there was no like official designation here on it. I don't know. I don't know what you do with it, but I thought that was very cryptic that they just threw that out there yesterday.
Listen, the Sixers have had a disastrous year. The messaging's been terrible. I will give the Sixers credit. They lost at home to the worst team in the league.
They did.
You can't ask for anything more than that, Nuggets. If I say Nuggets, this is the most difficult game in the league to lose. You are at home against the worst team in the league, and you found a way to lose. And you didn't only lose. I mean, they didn't lose.
They got beat.
Yeah.
But that's how you tank. And they've gotten better at tanking. Grimes not putting up 40 as much and, making me sweat over here.
He had a good game last night.
So, I'm good with their tank. But Embiid, I don't know. They're putting out all these reports. The messaging's been so back and forth on everything. It's brutal.
Listen, if you're the Sixers right now, you have to be praying every single day that Joel is healthy and ready to go, and Paul George is healthy and ready to go, and that this thing works next year. That what you thought you were getting this year happens for you next year.
Yeah, it's going to be something it's going to be fascinating to watch in the offseason, what goes on with the 76ers. But Embiid, there are reports that he's finished up with specialists and their consultations, the whole thing. 3 pack of nuggets for you today. By the way, little bonus nugget. Trea Turner just swung and his bat went flying down 0-2. Now he's back in the count 2-2. Just wanted to let you know. He's back. That Turner
That's
lost his
enough
bat.
that I needed right there because I can't. There's so many people in here. I'm having trouble seeing.
Yeah, he totally lost his bat. And now he's what? Oh, he fouled it off.
Fouled that one off.
All right.
And I thought he swung through it.
I thought he did too. But there you go. 3 pack of nuggets with a little bonus nugget of Trea Turner. Could he go 0 for 2 today to start? We'll see.
All right. Well, a lot of red on in here today. Red seems to be the pick. You went blue.
I went blue quarter zip, Phillies logo
I like it.
on the left side.
I like that one. That's a good blue, navy.
Christmas gift.
With the red. That's a nice one.
Yeah.
I went with the.
Very appreciated for this.
I went
Very
with
much
the
appreciated.
Phillies red with a little white pinstripe just halfway up, and then the Phillies P with the palm tree. And a little spring training embroidered down the zipper.
I'll tell you what. I could have Venmo'd you while you were down in Clearwater, and, you could have picked me one up. I'm just saying, no one asked. No one asked me.
Well, you know what you got to do? It's hard because they only sell spring training stuff in Clearwater.
Yeah.
It's hard. You can't usually get it. But you could have said, hey, if you see something you think I'd like my buddy was there with me, and I was in the store, and I said, oh, there's a shirt here that I think that you would like. And I took a picture of it, and he says, I like that.
Oh, man.
You got it's actually, I'll show you.
Now you're making me even more jealous.
See if I can find the picture for you.
By the way, Trea Turner's grounded out the third. 0 for 2 today.
The Phillies spring training shirt. It's a Phillies spring training shirt, and they have the sunglasses.
You know me, I'm a big merch guy.
I know.
Merch guy. When we were at the MAC, I was trying to find a quarter zip of the MAC tournament. They didn't have that.
I was disappointed.
I was very disappointed in that.
The MAC tournament, the one thing I do agree with you that I would say they lack.
Need a quarter zip.
A quarter zip.
Need a quarter zip.
You got to go MAC quarter zip.
Yes. Next year, let's get that into the building.
Here's the shirt. Ready here. Ready? See that? The Phillies with the sunglasses.
Oh.
I mean, it's not my style.
Now you're making me jealous.
But that's my point is I knew he would like it. What about the hat? You like the hat with the rope?
Yeah, I like the hat with the rope.
Dang.
Big rope guy. You're killing me. All right, that's the Nuggets.
All right, there you go. Nuggets. When we come back, Flyers made a big decision this morning. They fired John Tortarella. He's out. How did it happen? Why did it happen? You'll hear from Flyers general manager Danny Briere. His press conference is coming up on the other side, right here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. When we come back, Flyers GM Danny Briere live press conference on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. We are live at Maynards in Margate, and we're giving away tickets to the home opener plus a parking pass or you can win Metallica tickets. Stop out.
This is the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Now live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort studio, here's Mike Gill.
All right, final hour of the show. Phillies and Nationals. Nothing, by the way. The teams have combined to strike out 9 times. The Phillies have struck out 7.
Bryce Harper has struck out twice already.
What did I say, 9? The Phillies and the Phillies have struck out 9 out of 12.
Yeah. Harper struck out twice.
Terrible.
Nothing.
I will say the shadow's really bad. That looks like a double play. 3, 6.
And they dropped it.
Oh,
it's a start. Game 1. Game 1 of 162.
Game one. We're at Maynards in Margate. We're going to be giving away those tickets coming up here. We got 2 pairs of tickets for all of those people who have been listening and been a part of the show. We've been doing that, the cue to call, and everybody who's out here has a chance now to win tickets to go see the Phillies home opener on Monday.
Yep.
Hopefully it's a little warmer than today.
Yeah.
It's a little chilly today.
I know. It's
the
like
wind. Well, we're in Margate. It's cold over here.
Yeah, it's getting that off the shore a little bit. Windy's, it's not great outside.
So we got about a little while to get down here. You've got the Phillies tickets and the Metallica tickets.
Yes.
Now, the Metallica tickets, 2 shows. It's Lincoln Financial Field, and it's May 23rd and May 25th. This is a huge show. It's 2 nights, and apparently the 2 shows, they're not going to duplicate any songs.
Wow.
Nothing's going to be the same. It's going to be 2 totally different concerts. So we got that coming up for you in a little bit. Nick will be announcing the winners to the people in attendance here. We are at Maynards in Margate. Great spot to watch the game. Place is pretty filled up right now, but there's space for you. And, all right, so earlier today, some breaking news. The Flyers fired John Tortarella, and that happened probably about 8:30 this morning. We had our Flyers insider, Kevin Durso, on the show a little while ago. He explained it. For those of you watching on YouTube, if you want to go back to the 2 o'clock hour, you can listen to that conversation with Kevin Durso. But right now, you're going to get the explanation from Danny Briere, the general manager of the Philadelphia Flyers, as he joins as he has a press conference happening right now in Philadelphia.
First, I'd like to thank Torts for everything he did, the work that he put into this team and this organization over the last 3 years. Something we want to make sure and address and really say thanks to him for that. You've seen this team play hard over the years. They've showed they have a no-quit attitude ingrained in them. Torts is a very, very big reasons for that, and that standard that he set back in place over the last 3 season. Unfortunately, at this time, I felt it was time to go in a different direction, and that starts tonight. I know we have 9 games left, but they're 9 important games for us. I'm looking forward to evaluating our team and continuing to build this team into the summer. So again, thanks to Torts for what he did for us in the last 3 years.
Open up for questions. Danny, can you just why now?
I felt it was time, and you're going to ask me, is there one thing that happened? It's not one thing. It's a series of things that have happened, and probably a little bit more in the last 3 weeks that has escalated since probably around the trade deadline, right after that. So, like I said, it's not one thing specific. It's an accumulation that have happened, but probably more often lately.
Those comments, obviously, he made on Tuesday after the Maple Leafs game, I'm sure you saw. Did that play any role whatsoever in the decision you made?
It's one of the things that have happened along the way. That's not the specific reason, and there's not one specific reason. It's one of the things that have happened along the way. There's been different ones as well. So it's not don't just focus on that. I'm not going to get into the specifics of what we dealt with. That's not fair to Torts. We both have opinions, and it doesn't mean that mine is better than his. I don't want to get into that. But we had just some different opinions on different things.
The difference of opinions, was that more about the way things are now or plans for the future?
No, we always had him along the way. And look, Torts is a complicated man. He's a complicated coach. He's a blast to work with because he challenges you. I truly believe he made me a better GM. I loved working with him, and I think he loved working with me. He's not a yes man, and he had opinions, and he's earned the right to share his opinion, and we listened to him. But again, myself, Keith Jones, Dan Hilferty, we felt at this time it was time to move in a different direction.
A big part of what improved in the team the last couple of years was the structure. Did you feel that the structure was starting to fall apart?
Well, I'm not ready to blame Torts for that. The reality is we've made some tough trades that we feel are going to set us up for the future, but in the present time put us at a disadvantage. So it's probably not fair to blame Torts or our coaching staff for that, or it was just. The reality is that we felt there were trades that we needed to make at this time to set us up better for the future. Torts was on board with that. He understood that was part of the plan, and that was part of the phase of the rebuild that we were in. So that was not an issue.
Did you get a sense at all that the losing started to wear on him a little bit? He's a pretty competitive guy.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think not just on him, but on all of us. It's not easy, and that's probably that's the toughest part of the rebuild is going through this. Now, I really hope that this is the bottom. This is rock bottom for us today, and this is the turnaround. The trades were tough. They were tough to send some good players elsewhere and not really replace them in the trades. There were a lot of call-ups, younger guys, and guys that we want to see. So that makes it tough for the team, makes it tough for the coaches. Yes, that was taking a toll on all of us, and Torts included. He hates losing more than probably anybody we know. But I hope moving forward, and I have the feeling that moving forward now it's going to start to get better. And now it's not going to be an overnight thing. It's going to take time, but I feel we're stepping into a different phase of the rebuild. It's still a rebuild, but I feel starting to go into a different phase now.
How do you feel he handled the younger players, and did you get any input from the players in the room before you made this decision?
This had nothing to do with the players. We didn't get any inputs from the players, but at the same time, we're very close to the room. Jonesy and I are always around. We know what's going on, or we're maybe not everything, but we're pretty aware of what's going on and how things are going. I think Torts did a great job with the young guys. His approach to it, to making them pros, has really helped a lot of guys. Now, everybody reacts differently. There's guys that probably didn't work quite as well, but overall, I think he's done a tremendous job, helping our young guys take a next step, become better leaders and better players on the team.
Were there any discussions about him joining management for the final year of the contract? And if so, did the fact that he made public comments that he didn't want to be in management factor into this at all?
I didn't even see his comments, to be honest with you. I didn't see the comments, but no, there was no discussion about that. To me, Torts is a coach. That's his strength. I still see the passion. Now you have to ask him if that's, I shouldn't overstep here and say he still wants to coach, but I still see a passionate man that can still coach.
You mentioned about the post-game comments were just one of many things, but that they were part of it. He said after the game basically that he had little interest in learning how to coach this situation. I guess, do you think that he meant that? Was that poorly worded? What was your evaluation of that?
I feel there's probably more the frustration of the game and getting shellacked there in Toronto, the embarrassment that we all felt, and especially it's even tougher. Like I'm a little removed from that, being up in the press box. I remember being there as a player, and it's tough. It's really tough, and the coaches are right there with the players, and they hear everything. They're in the action with them. So I tend to be careful with that and not put too much stock into it. I think it was, I put it more as a, he was frustrated with how things have gone lately, and he was embarrassed by the loss that night, just like a lot of our players were.
But I guess, was there concern that the players would take that to mean that their coach wasn't fully invested anymore in them?
I don't know. I didn't have the time really to dive that deep down into it, and now it's really not important anymore. So.
Brad has a chance to show you something in a different capacity.
Sorry, what?
Brad has a chance to show you something in a different capacity over the next 9 games. But where are you guys at in your process, and what type of coach fits with the phase you're headed into?
We're not there yet. This happened really quick in the last few days. It's not like we have anything prepared. We haven't started looking or making lists or anything like that. We have bigger things to deal with right now, making sure the mindset's in the right place, helping out Brad and his staff, addressing the team, all these things. The focus has been on the team and on the players. There's 9 games left. We're not going to bring a different coach. Brad is the coach to finish the season. We'll be evaluating him and our coaches the rest of the way. That's going to be part of it. I'm not sure exactly what we're going to be looking for as a coach. One thing I can tell you is we have a young team. A coach that can teach is going to be important to start with. But as far as all the traits, I think it's a little too early to really dive deep into that.
What is the message in the last 9 games to the players?
So when I addressed the guys this morning, I asked them to stick together. And I told them, I said, if you don't feel like you're up to it and you don't feel like you want to play tonight, think about the guy next to you. He might be up for a contract year. He might be trying to save his job just to finish the year in the NHL. I play for each other, basically, is what the message was for them. That's the expectation. And I feel good about our group. They've never quit. They've always played hard. It's been tough lately, and part of it I'm responsible, with the trades and leaving the team where it's at. But one thing I'm proud of them is how hard and the no quit attitude that our coaching staff have put in place in the last few years.
You go back to last season. You guys are in a playoff spot. Second week of March or whatever it was, and there were maybe some questionable decisions on his part. I don't know if you agree with it or not, but is there anything in your evaluation of him that dates back to last season, that things that maybe he could have done better, that maybe you were worried about might repeat themselves over these last couple weeks?
It's a good question. There's things that happen that leave scars. I mean, it's just the real world. That affects certain players more than others. Maybe a little bit. I don't know to which degree, but there's certain things obviously that you keep an eye out and watch for that have happened in the past. Yes.
Do you think getting so close to the playoffs last year, changed Torts' expectations for this season, and they weren't met? And for your rebuild process, was that ultimately? Have you thought about whether it was a detour?
I can't answer for Torts. Not for me. I kind of knew that, and I think, look, last year we gave Torts a lot of credit and his staff for taking their players to where they did and being in a playoff position at the trade deadline, and where we were in our situation in our rebuild and timeline. We felt we could not pass up the assets that we were getting in return for Sean Walker. And I know it hurt us, but thinking about the long-term future, it was something we couldn't pass up. And again, it's probably hurt us. But for me, no, I still knew that, and it was tough reading, some of the comments and that were out there that, okay, this year was going to be the year. I knew in my guts that we were still going to go through at least another tough year this year. I knew it was still, we weren't out of the woods, that we were still part of that deep down rebuild, and we've seen this year. But I'm sure there's a little part of it, especially for the players and the coaches that are in the fight every day. You get so close to the playoffs, you're coming back the following year. And I love that attitude about our players and our coaches. But for me, and I think Jonesy as well, I think there's a reality there that we knew that there's a good chance we would take a step back, and unfortunately it happened.
You mentioned
now you're in another phase.
What's that?
What makes you think that now you're in another? What has led you to believe that you're entering a new phase of your rebuild?
Well, you look at the assets, the players that we've traded. Those were the players that we felt it was time for them to go elsewhere when we got our assets back. When I look at the team now, I feel good that those are the guys that will help us moving forward. And it's a young team, and it shows at time that the lack of experience, but the excitement of icing a young team and the prospects that are coming makes it very exciting for me. And I'm not saying that next year we'll take a huge step forward. It's going to be small steps. The patience part is the hardest part of a rebuild, but I feel at this time it's rock bottom.
If you have a young team, do you need a younger coach?
What's that?
If you have a young team, do you need a younger coach in your mind?
Not necessarily. We're not gonna close off any coaches because of their age. If they're the appropriate coach, we're gonna keep everything open. We don't want to limit ourselves to it, but at the same time, if a young coach fits the bill, then yeah, we might go for it. It might. Again, it's probably a little too early for me to start diving into that. We haven't made a list of coaches yet, so we'll deal with that in times. Shortly. It's not going to take very long, but as of today, I don't have anything on that.
Danny, you mentioned a few minutes ago that this came together pretty quickly over the last couple of days. You also said earlier that this wasn't just one thing, that it was over the course of a few weeks, starting kind of with the trade deadline.
Yep.
Was making a coaching change a serious consideration for you before these last couple of days, or is that new?
No, it's pretty new. I think it really got serious in probably the last few days, I would say.
Before the season, you were excited for Matvei Michkov to play under John Tortarella.
Yeah.
How do you feel that went?
I think it was a tremendous experience for Matvei to learn from a hard, passionate coach. He coached him hard, and I think he's done a fantastic job. Now, Matvei is one of the most competitive hockey player I've been around, so that fit well too. Not everybody is able to take the hard coaching that John Tortarella put on Matvei. I mean, I've been amazed by how he's responded to it. You've seen him get benched, you've seen him get scratched, and what does he do? He comes back and all he wants to do is stick it back to you or stick it back to Torts. It was really impressive. Every time he was challenged, his competitiveness just rose to the top, and he took over games. So I think it was great. I think Torts did a tremendous job with Matvei.
Danny, I'll do two more. John really kind of had a chair at the table in terms of evaluation and kind of being one of the faces of the rebuild. But did that make it a little more challenging to
Absolutely. We respected Torts a lot. He had a big say. We valued his opinion. Absolutely. And he's earned that. He's been around the game so long. He's been in so many dressing rooms. And when we talked about the culture, I mean, we trusted him, with the culture of the team. And in that regard, I think he's done a fantastic job. So yeah, his opinion was valued.
Danny, Last one. 9 games left, and given all the changes in the roster, how imperative is it for the veteran leaders to really lead by example, to play the right way through the final 9 games?
Yeah, well, one thing I can tell you there is, Torts has a big presence. It's not always easy for certain players to step up and take on a bigger leadership role in the locker room. So, without his presence in the room, I hope a few of those guys, step up and take a bigger role. I think it might make it a little easier, and not just the older guys too. I know there's guys along the way that have probably earned, to the rights to step up and be a little bit more vocal. So I hope we start seeing that now.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, guys.
All right, that was Danny Briere. You got him about 20 minutes or so there, giving you some back and forth on what happened today. The Flyers fired the head coach, John Tortarella. We'll give you some quick thoughts on that. Number one, he said it's been an accumulation lately about the last 3 weeks where they started to really start thinking about this. He said, we are still in a rebuild. We are not in a different phase. So he stressed, we still are in a rebuild here. And I think that's hard for a lot of fans to listen to.
Yeah.
And his last point that I really wrote down, he said, this got serious the last few days. He mentioned that it's had nothing to do with the players, that the players did not push for this, that he essentially decided now was the time. So that was some of the highlights from Danny Briere, but got some text messages coming in. This one's from Paul in Millville. He says, Mike, Briere has to go. How is anyone supposed to coach a team that gets blown up every offseason and trade deadline? You will never grow and develop a team that way. Torch was never pushed in position to succeed. Fire Danny. I got to disagree with Paul from Millville a little bit here. Number one, team gets blown up every offseason. This has been the same team for 5 years. I don't understand how they haven't made more changes. You got the same group of guys. The Lawtons, the Couturiers, it's been the same core. Once they got rid of Giroux, it was like, all right, they're going to start changing this thing up. You got Tippett in here. Now it's been Tippett, it's been Couturier, it's been Lawton, it's been go ahead.
And by the way, Briere hasn't hired a coach yet. This was Chuck Fletcher's coach in John Tortarella. So now Briere can go out and get his guy to go with what he wants to do.
Well, and the party says every offseason they get blown up and at the trade deadline. What trades have they made? This is the first time that Briere has got a chance to really say, all right, I got a couple guys. I think this is Briere. And look, I think what he's saying, Torts was never put in position to succeed. You're right. Here's the disconnect is this. Danny Briere was essentially to give Paul from Millville, and I'm not lecturing him, I'm just saying to give Paul from Millville a little bit of how to view this. Danny Briere was brought in to be Sam Hinkie. Chuck Fletcher was brought in to be Brian Colangelo. The problem was they reversed when they got hired. They got switched. If Briere was first and Fletcher was second, I think things might be different. But the problem was Fletcher was first, and now Briere is saying, well, Fletcher should have been doing what I'm doing now. He should have been stripping the team down, losing, accumulating draft picks, trying to build himself back up. Instead, Fletcher basically mismanaged the cap, completely bungled situations. He signed Ristolainen to a terrible contract, stuff like that. He brings in Tortorella. He said Tortorella was never put in a position to succeed. The team was never going to be good. I don't understand how you could say that. Briere said to Tortorella, listen, we got to rebuild. We can't. What do we have here? We got nothing.
Briere has been very consistent on his messaging since he got the job. They are going to tear this thing down. They're going to rebuild. And he's still on that message. And Torts was not on that same page with Briere and Jonesy in the front office. So obviously this was going to happen. It just was, the writing has been on the wall for a while now. And he mentioned it for the last 3 weeks. It's really elevated.
1-0 Nationals, a solo home run from Ruiz in the 5th off Wheeler. The Phillies have struck out 12 times through 5 1/3.
That's real good for that lineup. So-called lineup.
Just never seem to change.
Picked up where they left off.
I don't know that I could take a full season of reactions to every at bat.
It's going to be like the Eagles, like how we freak out on everything Eagles.
They should have passed the ball.
This is going to be 162 times.
I don't think I could take it.
Get off social media now.
I don't think I could take it. All right, we'll come back. Thoughts on that? Phil's text board is open, 609-403-0973. Climb on in. More Bash from Maynards and Margate. Coming up next, 97.3 ESPN.
You're listening to the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
When I'm driving, I got a guy on the radio who talks to me. I can't see him, but he talks to me.
On 97.3 ESPN.
For a limited time at Verizon, you can get our best price ever. That's 4 lines on unlimited welcome for just $25 a line per month with autopay plus taxes and fees. You'll also get the new iPhone 16 Pro, 4 of them for the entire family when you trade in up to 4 phones from our top brands. That's a new phone for everyone, only on the network you can count on. Verizon. Visit a store today. 20 monthly promo credits applied over 36 months with a new line on unlimited welcome. In times of congestion, unlimited 5G and 4G LTE may be temporarily slower than other traffic. Domestic data roaming at 2G speeds. Additional terms apply for phone offer. See Verizon.com for details.
This is the Town Square, New Jersey Info and Weather Network.
All right, 5:32, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. I got the most asinine text from somebody.
I wonder who.
It says 12 strikeouts. That's pretty significant for a season opener. Does it matter if it's the season opener, the 27th game, the 120? Like, you strike out 12 times in any game. It's significant for the season opener. And then what is the correlation there? Because you struck out 12 times in the first game of the year, are you then unable, like, are you disqualified for making the playoffs? Like, why is it I don't understand the mindset of why it's so significant that if you strike out 12 times in the season opener, what is the correlation?
I think a better word would be magnified. It's a more magnified.
Well, it's because everybody's
it's opening
watching.
Day.
You're excited,
right?
What, like, if it was Friday, it was game 2, and they struck out 14 times, would it be less detrimental? Like,
No,
I don't understand
game
why.
one,
Because it's opening day. You're
That's
excited.
Why. It's more magnified because it's the first game.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things.
No.
Like, what is the correlation?
There isn't. I just think it's more magnified because it's the first game of the year,
Yeah,
and everyone's pumped, everyone's psyched, and 12 strikeouts. That's not great to start, but in the grand scheme of things, we're not going to
Like, if they won the World Series, when I look back and say, man, they struck out 12 times on opening day. How did they win the World Series? I don't know how that's possible.
No.
It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
So is that the dumbest text you've ever received?
Well, considering I get a lot of texts from the same person, they one-up each other almost every single time of the scale of idiocy. But I don't understand how you can weigh striking out on opening day any more than, like, Game 5 or Game 125, Game 145. Like, if you strike out 12 times on opening day.
Bad no matter what. No matter what game, I agree.
Who's supposed? Like, I'm going to say, striking out 12 times on opening day is worse than 12 times on Game 10.
It might be worse in a postseason.
I
game,
would
to be honest.
I would say striking out that many times today is actually somewhat not acceptable, but understandable, because the shadows in this game have been so bad. The other team, the Nationals, they're striking out a lot too. I mean, it's not like they're hitting the ball all over the yard. They struck out 8 times.
Yeah.
The Phillies have struck out 13. They struck out 8. the correlation here is the shadows in this game have been a big problem. The Phillies have 1 hit, they have 2.
And one's a home run for the Nationals. So that's why it's 1-0 because of the 1 home run at this point. But it can't be worse than getting no hit in the World Series. I would say that's a little bit worse than striking out how many times?
I don't know.
13 now.
I'm not sure that it's a – the way that I read the text, though, is not that striking out is worse than whatever. It's for opening day, as if because you struck out so many times on opening day, your season is now done.
You're going to do this for 162 games, by the way.
I cannot.
See, you're already in. We're already in it. Game 1, it's already starting. And I may have contributed to it a little bit on social media.
That's pretty significant for a season opener. If it was game 2, would it be less significant?
I think
my question.
The reason.
Do you think it? You know what I'm saying?
No, it's any game. If you're striking out 13 times in less than what? In 6 innings? In 6 total
they have
innings.
13 strikeouts in 6 innings right now. So that's pretty significant for a season opener. Actually, I think of all days to strike out 13 times,
Let's get it out of the way now.
No, well, forget getting it out of the way. Your point is out, but it's, hey, they just came from spring training. It's a real game. It's the first game of the year. I think I would, of all days to strike out a lot, I would say the first game of the year. You haven't seen really live pitching of this magnitude all year. I can say I kind of expect you to struggle today.
We also got to give credit to Mackenzie Gore. Guy's on a tear right now, hitting his spots, throwing gas. He's pitching well. Like, sometimes you also have to give credit to the other team. And we in Philadelphia, in this area, in South Jersey, we sometimes don't do that. It's just our team stinks all the time. Maybe the other team had a really good day. Maybe the other player had a really good day, and that's part of it. So Gore's having an outstanding first start.
That's valid, too, but I don't think anybody cares about that. Hey, you struck out 13 times in 6 innings. Quote, that's pretty significant for an opening day. It's like, it's significant if it's game 2, 5, 7, 9, 11, 14, 37. Anytime you struck out 13 times, it's significant.
This text struck a nerve with you.
I just can't understand how people are so.
Welcome to the Philly season's back in full swing.
Can't do
It's like we're in the middle of the season already.
I can't do it. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
So
how
are the Phillies?
You could say, well, they struck out 13 times today. That's significant for opening day. That's significant for every game. If you strike out 13 times in a game, it doesn't matter what game of the season it is.
While Zach Wheeler is dealing, by the way. Guys pitching lights out as well. Gore's just a little bit better today. He's only allowed 1 hit.
Yeah, and by the way, the only hit came from Schwarber. He's hitting in the 4-hole today. He led off an inning with a base hit.
Did lead off. That's a key word. He did lead off that second inning with a base hit.
Yeah, now for the leadoff spot today, Trea Turner's 0 for 2. Harper's 0 for 2. Bohm's 0 for 2. Everybody's 0 for 2 except for Schwarber. Everybody is 0 for 2 right now. They're collectively 1 for 18 with 13 strikeouts.
3 guys have struck out twice. Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto, and Max Kepler all have struck out twice.
Now, Josh, I want you to go back to the 2008 Phillies and the 2022 Phillies and see how many times they struck out in their opener.
Oh,
and see
boy.
how significant strike.
Oh, boy.
Or anybody.
Get to the bottom of this.
Pick a World Series team. Can you imagine? That's significant. They struck out 15 times on opening day.
Yeah, I prefer.
You know, like when they do the NCAA tournament and it's like they eliminate teams based on like these trends.
Correct.
I want to see what trend is on the television of teams that can't win the World Series because they struck out X amount of times on opening day.
You know, I would rather them strike out 20 times on opening day than get no hit in the World Series and lose the World Series. That makes me more, and thinking about that and like just times that the Phillies have really gone cold, that's worse than opening day. I'll give it that. That's more. I think that's way more. Well, it is. It is way more significant.
You get no hit in the World Series. Okay, that's pretty significant.
Pretty bad.
If you said getting no hit in the World Series, and by the way, even though they got no hit in the World Series for one night, now they didn't come back to win the World Series, but it wouldn't prevent them from.
They still could win
the next day winning.
They still could win, but they did. That's the problem.
That's the thing I can't stand with fans anymore. This game today, if you struck out 19 times, it's over. The game's over. It's behind you. You're not striking out 19 times tomorrow.
You got 161 more to go.
It's
not even April yet, by the way.
I can't deal with it this
Not
year.
even April.
I can't deal with it this year.
Now, you know what would be significant?
I will make one irrational comment.
Go ahead.
Brandon Marsh stinks. He can't hit lefties. I don't know how they went into this season again saying we're going to give this guy a chance to hit lefties. He cannot do it. He stinks. He's not even all that good against righties. Why would anybody want to say, why don't you give him a shot against lefties? He's not all that good against righties either.
Yeah, I listen, that was a problem I had heading into the season too. Remember, we talked about it. Remember Harper moving to first base. They have two problems, center field and left field. Two big problems, big gaping holes in their lineup are in center and in left field. They didn't really address it in the offseason either. So that's why we talked about Dombrowski and the deadline.
Yeah, the Marsh thing I'm done with. I'm over the Marsh.
It's not even the first game's not even over. That's pretty significant from you, by the way.
I was done with Marsh before the season, though. I don't want to see Marsh against lefties. I don't need to see him against lefties. I don't need to give him a shot. They proved that he can hit lefties. I don't want to see him against righties if I don't have to. You need somebody different.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. With Marsh, he has struggled mightily against lefties, and they have had no answer. They don't have anyone that can replace him at the moment. One game in, or actually, 6+ innings, you're already out. You're done.
So I got every one of the Phillies teams that went to the World Series in the last 40 years. Okay.
Oh boy.
Oh jeez.
So the 2022 Phillies opened the season with 8 strikeouts versus a A's team, but they won the game 9-5.
I was at that game,
is
by the way.
8 a significant number?
No. It's a lot, but
it's one an inning, pretty much.
Yeah.
The Phillies struck out 6 times to open the 2009 season. They lost that game 4-1.
6 wouldn't be significant.
Nope.
2008, the Phillies struck out 8 times.
That ball's gone. Bryce Harper.
That's definitely gone.
Yeah. That's an Oppo-Boppo right there. Actually, it's like in the left center alley.
Against his former team, too.
Well, you struck out that many times, it's significant to you at a home run and you don't care anymore.
Exactly.
Boom or bust.
What was the 08 team?
The 08 team struck out 8 times to open the season. They lost 11-6.
8. See, that's twice now, 8.
By the way,
I would
they
say
lost.
It's not. I wouldn't say 8 significant. Double digits is a significant number.
By the way,
then you're getting it.
They lost the opening game of the 2008 season to the Washington Nationals.
Oh.
I should point that out.
I got a text from somebody that says 13 Ks in 6 innings. LOL. Here we go with an emoji of somebody crying.
Well, they just tied it up.
I don't.
They just tied it up.
Right. I mean, look. I hate strikeouts. I hate the way the game's played. But nobody even cares about strikeouts anymore. These teams, they say, strike out as much as you want, as long as you hit a home run, and then Bryce Harper goes up and hits a home run.
By the way, they did get into the bullpen. Gore is out, so that wasn't off Gore, by the way.
Not Al Gore, Harry.
Not Al Gore. By the way, really quick.
If Al Gore was pitching, it'd probably be warmer out.
Yeah.
Or not.
Like 93 pitches. 93 pitches for Gore.
I mean,
what are we
13
doing?
It's tied up now.
It's opening
it's a
day.
new game.
I get it. You have to
it's a new game.
Pitch counts.
By the way, the 93 Phillies guys, they struck out 7 times in the opening game this season.
13.
But they won that one.
7's not. To me, 8 would be significant in a different era. Like in this era, 8 is not significant, right?
No, not in this era. Not in current Major League Baseball.
Mike, is it almost like when the Celtics won the NBA title, it was like, hey, this team is a boomer bust team. All they do is shoot 3-pointers. And it's like, but they won the championship.
Well, it's like if you struck out 15 times in the game and you won 2-1 and hit 2 solo homers, nobody cares. But that's the game today. I get it. Like, I don't want to strike out. I don't want my team striking out 13 times, but there's no more significance of striking out 13 times on opening day than there is on any other game of the season. I mean, come on, that's just stupid.
At this point, it's crazy. Well, now they're making another pitching change. The Nationals are. So, listen, you're into the bullpen now. Maybe these guys can start teeing off. I mean, Gore just had a really good day, and now you got a chance to go win a ball game.
Well, and this is where it sucks too, because Gore threw 93 pitches. He's mowing you down in this pitch count thing. They got it, and I get it. It's the first game of the season, and you're saying, well, it's the first game of the season. Really, I mean, the guy's a grown man. He can't throw 110 pitches. I don't understand the world. What has happened? out there?
I listen. It starts at the youth level. You and I have talked about this before. It starts at the youth level. You're just
what was the story the other day?
It's all about velo.
What was the story?
I'm saying it.
What was the story the other day about the White Sox? How many pitchers they have on? They're getting Tommy John.
Oh, I did see that. Yeah, they've had. Oh gosh,
Have the
I gotta
pitch
look that
counts?
up.
Have the pitch counts helped with that? No. All right. We'll take a final timeout here. Nick's going to give away these tickets.
Can't wait.
Somebody's going to win tickets to the Phillies home opener on Monday. What if they strike out 15 in that game? Do you say it's pretty significant for the home opener?
Could be.
Is it more significant in the home opener or a road game?
Oh, I think opening day in general. It's bigger than the home opener.
We got home opener tickets plus a parking pass or Metallica at Lincoln Financial Field. More Sports Bash. We'll wrap up the show. I got the Bet365 play of the day coming up next. Earnshaw, he went with drums, by the way. I got pictures to prove it. He's got drums. Look at this. Check out my Insta. More Sports Bash coming up.
You're listening to the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
And it just keeps getting better.
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. You're listening to The Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
All right, time now for the Bet365 Play of the Day. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. All right, Josh, how did we do last night? I know I won that Sixer game.
Oh, you definitely won the Sixer game. Not just because I was miserably watching the Sixers game, but I had a buddy of mine texting me, I took Mike Gill's pick. He said he makes screenshots. I'm sweating this pick. Oh, they're going to win the pick. I got like a whole string of texts from him.
And so that one I won. What was the other game?
Denver won by 10. They did not cover the 10 and a half.
10 and a half. By the way, Kyle Schwarber with a Schwar bomb. The Phillies now lead it 2-1. All those strikeouts be damned. Jeff in Tuckerton is going to the Phillies game. He won the tickets to the Phillies. And Brian in EHT, he's going to the 2 Metallica shows at Lincoln Financial Field, May 23rd, May 25th at the Link. It's 2 different shows, Friday night and Sunday night for the Metallica show.
Now, Mike, I haven't asked you this before, but tell me, if you had to choose between the 2 prizes, which prize would you have chosen?
If I was picking, I'm going Metallica.
You go in the 2 nights.
I've been to the Phillies game a ton. I've never seen Metallica live. I mean, come on.
You've never seen Metallica? Wow.
No, I have not seen Metallica live. So I would go Metallica if I had the choice. If I had to choose to give you some money, here you go. Florida Gators and the over tonight. Florida minus 6.5. Over 156.5. And that is my Bet365 play of the day. What's the record right now?
You are 134, 89, and 1.
134 and 89 with one push. How can I push one game in all these picks? It's unbelievable.
It was during football season, too. It was like one of those weird games that just happened to hit.
All right, so we're getting ready to get out of here. Got game night coming up next. Nuggets, by the way, is walking all over there. He just did the giveaway there. I saw a gentleman tackle Nuggets. He said, "You're Nuggets."
Yeah.
By the way, Nuggets ordered a whole thing of drums.
That's not true.
A whole thing of drums. I took a picture.
I have the real story. If I could share it, I got time. Do I have time?
He did ask the girl if she could do all flats. She said she would, and then she brought them out and said, "I totally forgot to ask for the flats."
I got denied. Got totally denied.
That was like when I was in Florida. I was with my buddy. He says, "Oh, you want flats?" And I was joking around. I was like, "Hey, do you have flats?" I don't care. I don't not like flats. I just prefer drums. If you had to ask me which one I want the drums.
I'm boxing these up, taking them home to the man room tonight.
Nice
and I'm
looking.
only going to have the flats, by the way.
All
My
right.
roommate gets the other one.
Game night's up next, followed by the Sweet 16 on 97.3 ESPN. The Flyers tonight are over on Rock 104.1. All right, for Earnshaw, Josh is back at the studio, and everybody who set us up today. Thanks to intern Nick over there. Of course, Promotions Jen. She's not Promotions Jen anymore, but she helped out big time as always. And, of course, all the people here at Maynards in Margate for our opening day watch party. We're going to have details on the NFL draft party coming up. Listen around on Monday's show. See you, everybody.